It is really important to make sure that everybody always knows when they're live and when they're not live, because otherwise it's like, like it's just really unfair to people when they don't know. You know what I mean? And so like we gotta make sure that it never do something like that.
I said, "Oh my god."
Yes, I mean it caught royalty unawares when their conversations that they thought were private were public. That's why let us know when we're on the air, so that we might not impugn.
Yeah, it's like
yeah,
it's good to make sure that that people know ahead of time. I'll let you know.
Hot mic bit.
Is also about because we also need to know the 8-second rule, or is it 8-minute, where you can't say
8 seconds. Don't get me demonetized. We can't clear because we're talking about the news. And the news definitely will not get you demonetized immediately.
Except if you express your opinion on the news, and that opinion includes curse words or
swears,
words that might cause someone to become uncomfortable.
Please, please pray for me.
Huh.
All right, you got about 30
Let's
seconds.
go through all the words that might cause somebody to feel uncomfortable. Let's go through all the words now before we go live, before the mics go live.
Oh, yeah, good idea.
You might ask what the Duke might have done in the bathtub.
Oh, God.
That they had two members that the Daily Telegraph or Choreograph.
Choreograph, yeah, exactly.
All right, couple seconds. 3, 2, 1.
Oh, behave.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Unnamed Tavern. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I hope everybody is happy to be here. I'm excited to be here. How are you guys doing? It's good to see you. We have a special guest today. We got Barry with us, and that's awesome because I think this is the first time.
Midnight here.
Yay! I think this is the first time we've had Barry here on the tavern. Barry has been on the channel before, so it's good to see you, my friend. We've got Landon and we've got Dapper. Maanyaa is still currently away on whatever endeavor she is. I'm pretty sure at this point, given with how close that she's gotten to black holes, I'm pretty sure she just traveled through time. So
that's possible, or she may come back out as hacking radiation, right? I mean,
oh yes, true.
Maanyaa has superpowers that are unrivaled.
I mean, if we're waiting for her to entirely dissipate out of a black hole as Hawking radiation, she's not going to be back for a while.
Oh boy. Buckle in, everybody.
Unless there's lots of Hawking radiation. It could be a tiny micro black hole that's in possibly going...
Oh, okay, yeah, maybe.
Maybe.
That could work.
All right, so Barry, do you want to introduce yourself and tell everybody who you are and kind of what you're about, since this is your first time here?
My name is Barry. John...
I love putting Barry on the. I love putting Barry on the spot. It's so much fun.
You just doxed yourself.
Yeah, I was on television. I was on national television this week doing something very embarrassing. I was on a reality dating show. Well, that's not why I'm here. I'm here because I'm a writer and I write about religious stuff and philosophy stuff, and I'm a regular columnist with Only Sky, and I also write with other stuff. And also, words are my skill, which is why I'm speaking like this. I have I have a very, very, very big bunch of words, and I will be using some of them tonight. Very big.
Excellent. So you can construct a sentence without risking life and property and so forth. You have that skill. Wow.
Well, I live in Ireland, so they don't really care what you do here.
Would you say that you're about to open up your word hoard?
Well, that's already too complicated for me. I try to keep it one syllable at a time.
We're starting.
That was actually a Beowulf reference.
What reference?
Yes.
Beowulf.
Beowulf reference.
Oh, Beowulf. Oh, I know Beowulf. Yeah, I read that. He swims off and he does the same thing 3 times, and then he has a load of food.
Yeah, I get too many Beowulf references because I wrote some papers and took some tests where it was just like, here's the text of Beowulf in Anglo-Saxon. Write down what it means. Oh, okay.
Oh, I think it's like schlafende Versen wissen der Verschulch.
That's a little. It's a little less Scandinavian than that, but yeah, basically.
Little on the nose. So we have a handful of topics for tonight. and they
By the way,
are.
I'm Landon Knoll. I'm
Landon.
the one that's between Barry and the dinosaur over there. That's rather famous. So
Nobody knows who
I'm
you are,
sandwiched in between.
Landon. Get out of here.
But
Landon, let me tell you,
go ahead.
Well, Landon, if I was going to write a story and I needed to have a fake science fiction writer in the story, I want to call him Landon Kurt Knoll. Can I do that?
Sure.
Thank you.
I don't own the copyright on the name, so that's fine. So today I'm going to start off with drinking Henry Reinhardt's Private Reserve. It's a Pacific Northwest lager that I'll use. And should things get really crazy, I'm going to go switch over to Macallan 12.
I do that crazy stuff.
Double Scott, and because it's I like Scotland, and it's known that I'm certainly hoping they will eventually rid themselves of having to depend upon English Parliament to do things.
Yeah, because fuck them, right?
Pretty much.
Exactly. Especially if they're a Tory, if they're a Tory cunt or a Tory twit, like let's say Rees-Mogg or.
We're already past the 8 seconds, so we're good.
You know what's really weird?
I was worried.
They had a chance to vote for. They had a chance to vote for independence. They had a referendum. The referendum was voted down. And then the following weekend, in a general election, every single constituency in Scotland except one voted for a Scottish National Party candidate to send to Westminster.
I remember that. That was weird.
It was hilarious.
But
It was.
It is, however, known that the Scots are probably their own worst enemy. Once they rid themselves of the English Tory tyranny. And Labour, which is just Tories without all of the titles. Then,
but also
then
with a strangely high number of anti-Semitism scandals. That was a thing for Labour for a while.
Allegedly, although I'm not quite sure.
None of that. They did examinations on that. They did surveys on that, and that turned out to be total bullshit, which came from inside the Labour Party itself, not their enemies. It came from inside the Labour Party. Yes, the Blairites wanted to take down Jeremy Corbyn, and they did.
Okay.
Because imagine there's politics going on in Westminster. I mean, I know it's hard to conceive, but
everything is politics. I'm drinking a booster juice, by the way. If I'd ever get sponsored by anybody, it being booster juice would be great.
What's in a booster juice?
But what are other people drinking?
Boosts and juice.
Is that like alcohol or
juice?
No, it's like a fruit smoothie.
I am drinking a whiskey cola.
Ooh.
I ran out of booze yesterday.
By the way, you're not required to drink.
Yes.
No.
This is not a tavern.
Yeah, right. See?
In case it says so. But should you choose, drink responsibly, know your limits, all that good stuff.
Nobody's going to take better care of you than you, so make sure you take care of yourself. All right. So the topics we have...
I think I'm on a bit of a delay, so it may appear like I'm interrupting you or whatever, but in fact I'm just coming in a second or two after.
There is a delay, yeah.
That's okay. The Irish Sea will forgive you.
Thank you.
Scottish
culture, or as we call it, Irish culture, minus 500 years.
Oh, there you go. So we've got Turkey and Sweden.
Oh, I like the side shave. Nice.
Oh, thank you. Turkey and Sweden are talking about joining NATO, and they're arguing with each other. We got Ticketmaster and the Department of Justice. We've got Time Magazine talking about anti-aging, and there's a mini Elon Musk and Twitter update because some of the lawsuits are coming through because he's fighting with landlords.
We get to talk about Space Jesus again. Yay.
We get to talk about Space Jesus again, our favorite person. April for 5 said, "Hi, brother Bent. Thanks, Chesh. Hello, Landon, and everyone in the chat. Peace and love." April, good to see you. Thanks for coming by.
Oh, April. Good to see you.
I also see John in the chat. Hi, John. Good to see you. We got Smitty in there. I see Athens has joined us and Letty, so it's good to see everybody, as well as Bent. So I think we probably start with probably Time Magazine because it's pretty fluffy. It is pretty science fluff. At least my reading of it. And I think probably Dapper's comments on this would probably be our first take. So let me just get this up on screen for you guys.
Which Times Mag? Oh yes, the hands thing.
Yeah, so I've actually seen this
yeah.
I've seen this picture on like so many like ads on fishy websites ? Now I'm not going to tell you which fishy websites I may or may not be on, but the ones that have like ads all over the place. I see this picture all the time. So it's interesting time magazine season.
Goblin ads. That's sort of.
Apparently, when you reverse aging, it only applies to one half of your body.
Well, they put the magic thing on the one hand to show the difference between the two, because for marketing purposes.
So basically, what it comes down to is cell genetics, and if you read through the article, it basically talks about how they were able to focus on a part of the genome called the something. Hey, Dabber, what's word is this?
Epigenome.
Thanks.
Epigenome.
What is an epigenome?
So,
Step up.
an epigenome is the part of your genetic makeup that, rather than being just the basic, order of nucleotides from your DNA, this is other things that are part of your genome but aren't that. So things like in certain cells, unneeded regions of the genome will have various proteins bind to them to create what's called heterochromatin, which basically really can't be transcribed, and that's how you turn off certain things in certain cells. So like like your salivary glands produce amylase. Well, okay, that's great, but like your dermal cells don't need to make amylase because you're probably not going to be absorbing bread through your skin. So those genes are turned off in your skin cells. The epigenome also has other things like various histone proteins and things. And these are all things that happen to your genome in various cells, or genome-wide in some cases, as you're developing or as you're living your life. And so like none of these things were really the case in, say, like the zygote that became you, once that sperm and egg fertilized, you basically didn't have much in the way of an epigenome, although some epigenetic things can be inherited from your parents, but that's a smaller subset of the epigenome. And it comes from genome, obviously, and then epi, which is the Greek preposition for over. So it's what's kind of over the genome rather than in the genome.
So basically it talks about how they were able to age a mouse and then reverse the process slightly. And so that's sort of, they're calling it rebooting. So it says, in the mice, he and his team developed a way to reboot cells to restart the backup copy of the epigenetic instructions, essentially erasing the corrupted signals that put the cells on the path towards aging. They mimic the effect of aging on the epigenome by introducing breaks in the DNA of young mice. And then it says, bracket, outside the lab, epigenetic changes can be driven by a number of things, including smoking, exposure to pollution, and chemicals. That is, everything is chemicals.
Yeah, exposure to chemicals is one of the dumbest things.
Are they organic?
Organic chemicals?
Yeah, well, I'm really worried about my exposure to xenon chemistry. Yeah, that's. But by the way, xenon chemistry is a thing.
I heard dihydrogen monoxide has a pH of 7.
I have made
a
xenon compound, and then it blew up.
Once aged in this way, within a matter of weeks, Sinclair saw that the mice began to show signs of older age, including gray fur, lower body weight, despite an unaltered diet, reduced activity, and increased frailty. And then it says that they were able to undo and rejuvenate the cells.
So they had a backup copy. Where did this backup copy exist?
In the cell.
Yeah, that's a good question, because are they using? It wasn't very clear. And to be fair, look, I haven't looked at the paper because I don't know. I haven't. I'm lazy. Sorry.
We got that kind of time.
They didn't link a paper. Here's a study published here. Go with this.
Well, I mean, all we know for a fact is that they managed to reverse the signs of aging that they themselves put into a mouse.
Right.
Yeah.
And if
there's a few things. Sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
So there's a few things. One is, okay, look, right, this is a very early preliminary study in a particular potential treatment for reversing some of the effects of aging. That's if it works at all on humans, it's probably still decades away. So, we get a lot of time to work all this out and figure out exactly how it's supposed to be working.
Mhm.
But also, it is the case that lots of things work in mice that don't work in humans. Mice are used as reasonable proxies for humans for good reason. Primates and rodents are relatively closely related, and it's tricky to work on primates all the time. But it is still the case that a lot of stuff that works in mice does not end up working on humans. So this might not work. Also, there is the fact that rather than de-aging naturally aged mice, they're de-aging artificially aged mice. So there is the question: does that carry through to naturally aged mice? Can you actually reverse aging the same way in a mouse that is just literally old? I don't know. So it's one of those things where it's interesting, but I don't think that you should neglect to get a will anytime soon. You might still need a will.
And wouldn't over time your backup copy degrade just like your primary copy? I mean, it doesn't make sense that.
You mean you would regularly need injections of whatever it is. So the summary of the actual paper, and here's the names. This was where it was published,
Okay.
a Cell Press journal. And it says, all living things experience an increase in entropy manifested as a loss of genetic and epigene information. In yeast, epigenetic information is lost over time due to the relocalization of chromatin-modifying proteins to DNA breaks.
Chromatin.
Chromatin.
Did I say chromatin?
Yeah,
That
is,
I think you said
chromatin modifying.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay.
It's like chromosomes.
Most just doesn't know how yeast grows old.
Causing cells to lose their identity, a hallmark of yeast aging. Using a system called ICE, inducible changes to the epigenome, we find that the act of faithful DNA repair advances aging at physiological, cognitive, and molecular levels, including erosion and the epigenetic landscape, cellular X-differentiation, senescence?
Senescence. Old, being old.
An advancement
This is the real reason that people watch Chesh, to watch her try to pronounce words.
I can't read, but also I am so sick today. Please have mercy on me. And I feel like the answer was already no, since I'm reading the synopsis of a full-on paper. An advancement of the DNA methylation?
Methylation, yeah.
Clock.
Yeah,
Which can be reversed by OSK
Mediation?
Mediated.
There you go.
Mediated.
Yeah.
rejuvenation. These data are consistent with the information theory of aging, which states that a loss of epigenetic information is a reversible cause of aging. I feel like a child with 3 parents watching me read aloud.
Okay, so my comments that seemed a little bit questionable were more on the Time reporter trying to explain this paragraph, which to me is more clear, that this is not some miracle cure where they went through, they've noticed this stuff and they were able to reverse a process in, I guess, yeast cells, right?
Yep.
This isn't really, also this isn't addressing really any of the reasons that people die. People don't die because they're old. They die of things like cancer and heart disease and so on. That doesn't address any of that.
And this is a problem of reporting, right? And I have a very good friend who's a librarian, research librarian, and she's getting her PhD in library sciences. And one of her classes she's teaching is to people who try to become are journalists, and she's making them report on a subject they know nothing about, and go through the methods of trying to produce something that's credible, which sometimes goes to you go to the source, do journalism, and ask them. I can imagine if the Time person had said, contact one of the authors and said, "Is this what you mean?" They would have said, "No, no, 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 no." But
there's something to be said here that seems to be like there. Okay, tell me if I'm understanding this, because I am a layperson. I'll barely read, as it was just demonstrated. So, is this, from my understanding, what I'm picking up from this is we haven't reduced the problems that come with aging. What we've done is we've made it appear, we've taken the like the physical look of signs of aging and have been able to reduce them in something that we made ourselves. So
Well,
they're
put,
like, we turned the rat's hair gray, and we were able to make the hair on the rat no longer gray. And so, like, that doesn't necessarily inherently reverse the problems that come with, like, the fragility of old age, but would reduce the visual appearance of aging.
So that's a little tough to say, right? Because to some extent, some of the visual appearance aspects of aging do tie into health problems, right? So, for instance,
Yes.
like as you age, some of the various proteins that go on to make up things like your connective tissue start to degrade. If that's getting reversed, well, that's not just going to have an outward aesthetic, change. It's also going to change how well all your connective tissues are working internally, which, that could be significant.
Right.
But on the other hand, there are some things like turning your hair dark after it goes gray. I mean, it's nice, but like, it's not going to save you from like, a heart attack.
This is coming from a company that does anti-aging beauty products. So, to be fair,
yeah.
Would you
but
take
it
a
is
heart
a
attack
case.
to get your hair back the way it was when you were 25?
No.
It really is dealing with some of the gene expressions that have outward benefits, and being able to advance those changes forward and retard them.
You can't say that. You're gonna get us canceled.
Dude, we talked about this in the green room.
Oh,
Darn it,
sorry,
Landon.
Trademark Canada.
He takes a drink. That was one of my favorite drinking games of this channel. Anytime Landon is on, every time he says, "Sorry, Trademark Canada, take a shot."
I accidentally
Don't take a shot, you'll die.
Slipped into Spanish, is it?
Yeah.
All right, so basically what we're getting at is there's issues when it comes to reporting on scientific advancements and papers. And we ran into a little bit of the same problem when we talked about fusion energy, right? We ran into their kind of overblowing what the advancement actually entails, or like the practical usage of the advancement.
Yeah, and understand, I'm not criticizing the science writer or the person who wrote the story for not understanding genetics. Or like there's a similar story you might have heard about the supposed the Earth's core is slowing down, stopping, and might reverse type of thing. What I'm criticizing is they're not doing journalism, right? Because if you're coming to a story from an outside and you're trying to report on it, you need to go through to try to access sources and try to do fact checking and that sort of thing. That kind of stuff would have probably caused them to want to talk to the authors of the paper. The authors actually might be willing to talk about it, and to run by things on that. That's the usual things. So, like, for example, that Earth core thing, right, where supposedly the Earth core was supposedly reversing. No, right? It has been known that the Earth's core rotation speed is slightly offset from the surface, right? That the two have a line we believe approximately about 1 degree per century misalignment. And this research paper, if it's correct, said that 1 degree per century varies. And that they believe it varies wider than their margin of error, although some people have questioned whether or not the whole thing is in error in the first place. And this is not the Earth's core comes down, stops spinning. This is not polar reversals. This is not all this sort of stuff. And what it is, when you hear about Earth core stopping and that kind of stuff, that's a sign that a lazy journalist read something else and just parroted it and did not do fact checking to go to the sources
Well,
right? And this lazy journalism is a really big plague on society, not just for science stuff, but
Well,
for other things.
I'm so
So
old. I remember
currently, we
when
don't need to do
Cold
the
Fusion
plot of
thing.
core.
well, hold on. Before we move on about like the
Sorry.
core, Barry, you're actually a journalist. So what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I'm a writer. I was described as a journalist once in a blog post written by AAI people, and I was
Okay,
never as insulted in my life.
okay, not a
Journalist.
journalist.
Would you believe
Sorry,
that?
analyst.
Oh my word!
Analyst is the word I
I'm a
use for
writer.
you.
I'm a writer. I just write things. And I hope people like them. That's it. I am not a journalist in the sense that I don't like talk to people about stories. I just write whatever I feel like writing. That's pretty much what I do.
That's fair. That's
Commentary.
But I was going to say, I'm so old. I remember when the original Cold Fusion people, they were called Pons and Fleischmann, and they came out in 1997-ish. And they went straight to the press with their findings. They didn't bother going through like Cell magazine or any shit. They just went straight and said, "Look what we've done. We've created limited
That's a bad sign.
It's
That's
a very
definitely a
bad
bad
sign,
sign.
yeah. But no,
Yeah.
none of the journalists
But to
picked
be-
up who were writing. They never said, by the way, this is a bad sign. They just wrote about it. Like what Landon said. This bad journalism thing is not new, you know?
right.
Yeah, and so the notion of a newsroom trying to get a second source of a story before publishing it, so they have some level of credibility, is it seems to gone by the wayside. And in fact, the mixture of reporting of a story and promoting an opinion is another problem, where usually the editorial board was on the editorial page and reporters reporting on the who, what, when, where, why important of a thing had sources and facts that their editor checked on, and a fact checker came in to help verify in order to improve the credibility of the news media organization.
So we do
But that
have
became expensive. And when
Right.
news media
Okay.
organizations turned into profit centers, getting the facts or trying to verify the facts got in the way of
Here's how you
profits.
do that. You call up your source and you say, okay, I'm going to count to 10. And if I get to 10 and you haven't said anything, then we can print the story. That's how you do that. That's all the President's Men joke. Sorry, I'm just too old.
And you know, in the case of science journalism, most authors of papers would love to talk about what they're doing, especially if they get promoted and have a better opportunity then to promote the value of their research and get more funding. We're not talking about extracting
Right.
from a member of the Tory party the truth. We're talking about someone trying to explain the importance of what they're doing,
Well,
which is
Dapper,
not usually a Tory.
Dapper, your
Yes.
channel is kind of all about science communication.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
So what do you think?
So look, I do a lot of stuff with like paleontology and things like that. And my goodness, does everyone who is actually into the scientific side of paleontology hate science reporting, because it's always just terrible. And I mean, look, I don't know if I have a solution, but I can tell you that yeah, it really is a problem. And look, with paleontology stuff, okay, if people have a misunderstanding of where like Tyrannosaurus Rex fits in the tree of life, it's probably not going to be that big of a deal. But like, it's symptomatic of this kind of pervasive desire that I see in a lot of science reporting to be sensationalist, but not really being concerned with being accurate. So we get headlines like, "Oh, James Webb Space Telescope presents problem for the Big Bang," which no, it hasn't. Literally has not done that. Or we get things like new bird found with a T-Rex head, which is not even a little bit true. But I read that headline anyway. And like it's very frustrating because, well, I mean, for one thing, it's just bullshit. Like, I don't want to have to deal with this. I don't have, but also like scientific literacy is a big part of, you know, having a successful society. We need people who know what things we know and how we know them, and what things we don't know and why we don't know them, at least to some extent, because, you know, this comes up in things like government policies that people are going to vote on, right? If you don't have a reliable science reporting, then how are people going to be able to assess things like plans to address climate change or things like
the education system in
do
Florida.
projects for the education system. Yeah, well, goodness, the education system. What should be taught to kids? What kinds of research ought to be funded? Which ones maybe don't need to be funded? Things like that. Like, you need to have a decent level of scientific literacy to be able to make an informed decision about this. So I think it's important to have a populace that has a decent level of scientific literacy, and bad science reporting is directly, like, I'm not going to say opposed because I don't think it's an intentional thing. It's directly antithetical. There's the word I'm looking for. To having a well-informed populace.
But even if the reporter does not have a solid grasp on this particular area of science, there are sources that they could go to do the fact checking, right? And so the criticism is not the reporter didn't understand genetics or didn't understand Earth physics. It's the fact that they didn't do their basic diligence in writing a story. Yes. So my friend knows she's her graduate class is on journalists who are trying to get their journalism degree. Is one of the things she does is picks out random papers, toss it at the student, and say, your job is to report on this paper.
Right.
And chances are the student has no idea what the paper's about, but they're told by the editor to do it. And so, and in fact, what she tends to do on the other side is warn the paper writers, students are going to be asking this. And in fact, she knows whether or not they actually even bothered to try to contact the paper or the journal, which is really the basic sort of thing about if you're reporting on a fire in your town, there are sources that you can talk to, like the public safety fire department, or if you don't do your diligence and then you claim ignorance and then you put out stuff, whose fault is that?
So mildly spoken there, Landon, with the stuff.
Yoinking stuff.
It's look, I get it that you have deadlines and you want to get the article out, and ultimately what your employers care about is that bottom line. So I get the impulse to just write a paper that sounds good. But yeah, I do think that there should be, at least as a mark of pride for science reporters, they should want to get it right.
Well, the problem is,
Maybe that's too much to ask.
that you want people to read the thing, and you kind of the audience will tell you what to do in pretty much any field of activity. And if you write sensationalist headlines and you get a big hit on it, why would you not write a sensationalist headline? Why wouldn't you just saying scientists have cured cancer? That's your headline. And then in the end, you'll find out that what they've done is they've cured a cancer they gave to a mouse last Tuesday or something. It's not even a real cancer. It's just a little marble they put in his liver or something. Right? But why not? Like, why not just open with that? If your audience that's what they want.
Unfortunately, it makes good sense, like, economically, to do stuff like that. And I wish I had a good solution.
The public
that makes sense, but also just if you want people to read the
clickbait. Yeah.
Lag.
I think there's a way, for example, of that, genomic article to put forward a attention-grabbing headline that's not clickbait, because if you're going to put something in the title of reversing agent, you need to back that up in the article. Right. And preferably referencing someone else who is authority on that area, or referencing something that so you might end up talking to the authors and ask them what could possibly come about when we logically extend this by doing more research, right? Because the author paper could say, yes, if you fund this research, we could do this, right?
You're asking them to write a science fiction report. Okay.
But you can say this result is a step along the way to understanding the aging process better, right?
That's not snappy. Write the headline, Landon. Write the headline for that paper. Write me a snappy headline.
Trump will appear older or younger in next election because of this research.
You had me at Trump
and Clorox.
And Clorox.
And
Trump, full stop. Make him read. Fucking make him pay. Make him work for the article. Trump. That's the headline. Just Trump. One word.
Clickbaiting the former president of the United States.
Oh, it's good.
By the way, Barry, be careful what you say, because Chesh will take sound bites and produce little snippets of things.
Oh, hold on. What hold up.
Chesh would never do that.
Space
I've
Jesus.
done that myself.
Space Jesus. All right. So the next
Space Jesus is a great clip, and I loved it.
It was pretty great. All right, so do we want to talk about Space Jesus already? We can talk about Space Jesus
why not?
already. Cool. All right.
You
cool.
won't believe what Barry Purcell said in this stream.
Speaking of, what a segue. Space Jesus over here
There he
is getting himself into trouble because he's got a huge ass debt from buying Twitter, which he definitely didn't want to do and got caught with his pants down and then had to buy.
He's the wealthiest African American in the world.
And also he's gotten in trouble because he wasn't paying the rent for any of the locations of Twitter buildings, and those landlords are now coming after him.
Yeah, always Space
you gotta
Jesus.
pay your rent.
Pay your rent, right? You who claim to be the master genius in finance should know that rent needs to be paid, and this alleging unpaid rent. Okay, they're trying to avoid legal stuff, but in fact, from sources, right? The landlord should not have to come out and grab. They shouldn't have to put chains on the doors to try to force you to pay rent, right? This is not this should be something you should have done as due diligence when you bought the thing to understand your basic run rates.
Oh,
maybe
my understanding.
Exposure.
My understanding is that him not paying rent was an intentional act.
Yes,
it's not that he neglected to.
Yeah.
He made a conscious decision. I am not going to pay this bill because Twitter isn't making enough to pay this bill.
Right.
Which, I mean, I get it. You're cutting back on your expenditures when you don't have the income. Fair enough. However, when you have a contract with someone, and I'm pretty sure that the rent due on the Twitter office spaces is not like a paltry sum. When you have that kind of contract, people will come after you. And then, you might also have to do things like pay for interest payments on unpaid debt, or, pay extra for the maintenance costs that or maybe even punitive damages, maybe.
I mean,
so
we're talking about I think somewhere around $3.4 million a month for one particular building.
It's a lot more than my rent.
Yeah, the amount we're looking at is Twitter failed to make roughly $3.4 million rent payment for December and a similar size payment for January. And in the complaint filed on Friday in San Francisco Superior Court, the landlord said it drew on Twitter's letter of credit to try and cover the missing payments, but the company still owns $3.16 million.
Well, maybe he can just sell more Tesla stock. That's going well for him, right?
Well, okay, so that's the other article we got over here. Explores raising up to...
Elon Musk, I think, is like George Lucas. Like he's kind of a big vision, a big kind of picture thinker, but do not let him control the details because he has no idea what he's doing.
I don't even think he's a big picture guy. I think he's just kind of says things.
So
I
in
said it was big.
In my opinion, this is just an opinion, there is probably fewer people who know less about finance and wealth than Musk. There are fewer people on this planet who know less about manufacturing than Musk. There are fewer people who understand about commitments less than Musk. I mean, and it's nearly the case that if anything that Musk touts as a thing he does, more likely it's the opposite that is found to be true. So his raising up to $3 billion of help, this is a rookie move, right? You don't go and say, hey, here's how much money I need to get, so I want to sell my stock. Because at this point, anyone who might be dumb enough to buy your stock knows how desperate you are and is not going to pay the price to give you that money.
It's a really bad negotiating tactic. When you go into a negotiating like anytime you go into negotiation, and I may or may not have experienced this in the recent past, you want to have
I
more.
feel like I remember that.
You want to have as much information as possible. So that includes knowing the person you're negotiating with, how they're going to react to certain things, and kind of knowing what you have to work with. And so the more information you have, the better. But that also means that you want to control what information the other person has about you. And so being straight up being like, I need this much money is such a bad negotiation tactic, because now you've given all the information, and you've just like, it's like playing Connect 4 and saying, I'm gonna put my guy there.
Well, this is from the same mind that put a Twitter poll up saying, should I resign as CEO?
Yeah, and 10 million people were just like, yes.
So Musk suffers, I believe, from the appearance of having poor impulse control. Right? So just look at that, right? He tweeted, "Am considering taking Tesla private at 420. Funding secured." Right? First of all, as an insider, he's making a declaration.
Right.
He doesn't get to say that's a joke.
Right.
Right? And secondly, that notion of he's declaring this stuff, which of course caused the price to jump, as some people who were foolish enough to believe what he said began to operate on that, and then it corrected a short time later when the press started looking at, well, who is buying this? Where is your funding secured? I mean, understand, Musk is not the most richest person in the world. He does not have that much money.
Especially not everybody.
He doesn't have a pile of cash.
Right.
Really, he to some extent, he never was. The thing is, when you talk about people who are, this person's a billionaire and a trillionaire, what that usually means is if you took all of their assets and sold them at current market price, this is how much that person would recover. But the problem is that in most cases, you can't actually do that in the real world. And we've seen it with Musk, right?
You can almost never liquefy that quickly at that rate, particularly because as soon as you start liquidating assets, people notice. And so that immediately fluctuates the price.
Right. And the thing is that, I mean, to some extent, the Tesla stock price is not a reflection of the actual value of Tesla as an automotive company. Mm-hmm. It's based on the star power of Elon Musk.
But are we also...
And when he starts backing out, everyone else is like, oh, maybe it should be evaluated as just a...
And Tesla's no longer the only car in the market when it comes to electric cars. They're now competing with Honda. Sorry?
I have a Nissan Leaf.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Nissan, all of the other car companies, your regular car companies, your Toyota, your Ford, your yada, 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 all of them are making electrical cars. They have to. There are government policies that are going through saying that they have to stop production on combustion engines. So they have to make these changeovers anyway. They're getting subsidies to do so. They're making cars that are affordable and not like the Mustang Tesla version. And on top of it, Tesla's got its own problems. But can we all just take a minute and appreciate that I absolutely called it when I said Tesla was going to suffer for Elon Musk's dumbass Twitter decisions?
Well said.
Thank you.
I think that Chesh.
Ring! Somebody call that. Pick up that phone.
Chesh was right about Kilauea volcano. Mostly, and she's mostly right about Tesla and its impact of most stuff. But so the following is not financial advice, right? You should seek a certified financial planner and to act on this thing. But in my opinion, Tesla is vastly overrated, even at its low amount. Right now, Tesla is trading at $177.90 per share. In my opinion, that is probably an order of magnitude too high. Okay. Right now, the price to earnings ratio of Tesla is at 50, meaning if you gave Tesla $1, and they return back, earnings, it would take you 50 years to get your dollar back.
Right.
Right. That's sort of the betting up. That's the extreme set. In my opinion, I might consider $17 a share to be a fair value for Tesla, but no one's going to sell it to me at that, because suckers who bought it at high prices want even more price. Also, in my opinion, if you bought a Tesla car, you're also in trouble because of its value and so forth. So it's inflated stuff that gave this person star power, when it appears his financial experience is doubtful. His impulse control is nil at best.
I've seen potatoes that are slower to propagate.
Yeah. But his ability to build a cult of personality is extraordinary.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, good at that.
There's a bit in here that says Elon Musk's team has held talks with investors about raising up to $3 billion to repay some of the $13 billion in debt tacked onto Twitter Inc. as part of his buyout of the company. People familiar with the matter said, in December, Mr. Musk's representatives discussed selling up to $3 billion in new Twitter shares. People familiar with that, with the matter said. Like, this article could be written better, not gonna lie.
Who would buy a Twitter share?
That's an AI written article, look.
Maybe it's like
they use the same phrase again. No writer would use the same phrase three times that close to each other. It just wouldn't.
Maybe it's like, I know some people who own quote unquote stock in some sports teams, and like, sure, there are technically shareholder meetings and whatever, but like the stock doesn't pay dividends, and they never sold enough that the actual owner of the team ever has to be challenged on anything. But it was basically just a little fundraiser for the team, and it's like, you're technically an owner of insert football team. Maybe it's like that, right? Like, you're not going to get anything out of buying Twitter stock, but maybe you're a fan of the platform, and you want to be able to say, I own part of Twitter.
Yep. Maybe what you want to do is, as a shareholder, to be able to then go to a shareholders meetings and troll them. I don't know. Some people do that.
Maybe that.
I would like to take this moment to remind everybody to definitely not go to cameo.com/ksorbs, and definitely do not pay Kevin Sorbo to read his own tweets out loud. Do not do that. Definitely do not do that thing.
Yeah, I do not support that as a dinosaur.
I want to point out that prior to Chesh's show that you can see, I assume the link is in the description below, I knew the name Kevin Sorbo, but I didn't know who Kevin Sorbo was until Chesh informed me of it. So I blame Chesh for tainting my...
I find it strange that Landon's favorite movie isn't God's Not Dead. The greatest Kevin Sorbo movie of all time.
Oh, that's right. He was involved in that.
Yeah, he was the asshole atheist guy who converts to Christianity right before he dies, and that's the happy ending of the movie.
He's the guy that every young Earth creationist preacher tells a story about, and then everybody on the plane stood up and clapped.
Yes. Such realistic stories.
Thank you, Chesh. Wait, you should subscribe to our channel. Consider being a patron, because these are the gifts you can get. You can learn about.
Oh my God, you're so welcome, Barry. Do you
the existence of Kevin Sorbo can be inflicted upon your consciousness.
Barry, do you have anything to add about Elon Musk?
No.
No, get me out.
Short and sweet.
I don't have much to say about him. He's got a lot of money, and he's like I said, he's the world's richest African American.
Had a lot of money.
Yes.
He's still. And you said Tesla stock price is overvalued, which it probably is. But then, I mean, every company's stock price is at some point subject to a number of factors, none of which are related to the actual value of the company's assets or what they do.
Yes.
Right? I mean, a PD ratio of 10 to 15 is probably more rational than the 50 or higher onset. But I also, by the way, would suggest to people to consider not using Twitter. Here's why. Twitter has essentially disabled all third-party apps. So there were some nice Twitter apps out there.
Mhm.
You have to use Twitter's app or Twitter's service. And you ask yourself, to what extent are they monetizing and getting other things from their app? If you're using their app on your, on a cell phone or your computer, particularly if you have one of those computers that's subject to stuff, I would not recommend using a Twitter app on a device you care about. I would not recommend, because of the reputation and how desperate they are to make money, I would not recommend browsing Twitter, because of how they're trying to, he's trying to make a lot of money off of just your, so even if you say, I don't have an account and using it, my suggestion is, if you have the Twitter app on your device, delete the Twitter app. My suggestion is, don't log into Twitter and don't use their website. I don't recommend it. You can do what you want, but tweet.
Wait now.
Twitter.
I delete the app and I don't go on the website. That's cutting a very fine line with my Twitter usage. How am I going to access it?
Public libraries.
I would recommend doing something else, like maybe reading a nice article or a large book, or subscribing to Dapper's show.
Those are all way more than 250 characters, man. Come on. What is this?
So, no, seriously, be cautious of the Twitter app, because of how desperate they are to try to make some money off of your usage.
I have been enjoying kind of watching it structurally crumble from the inside. I was getting dull notifications and sorry, go ahead.
That's every social media. Like, people think that they're the customers of the social media. They're not. They're the product that are being sold to the customers who are advertisers. That's the same. That's the deal on Facebook too.
It's the deal on YouTube.
That's true.
Yeah, I mean, that's just the way it is.
I don't think that's what Landon's concerned about, though. Landon's talking about the security. Landon's talking about like the problems when it comes to like
and the privacy.
That's never been an issue with Facebook, is it?
Well, no, he's saying it is a problem with Facebook. Landon doesn't use Facebook either.
Social media.
You don't want me to talk about that internet sociopath company. You think I have issues? No.
Well, maybe my problem is everything about me is already kind of open, and if they dig up some secret stuff, I'll be like, yeah, okay.
Very. It's not about whether you are somehow private or known. It's not about whether you have something to hide. It's whether, do you own yourself? Do you own your identity? Do you own who you are?
Landon, I don't have an identity. I'm just a collection of opinions.
That's an identity. That counts. So speaking of
fair enough.
Speaking of owning things and not owning things, and who owns what in specific and certain situations, D&D and Wizards of the Coast.
Yeah.
So, man, I'm smooth as hell today.
For this section, I brought this.
Hey, there you go. You want to get a
WotC sticker. I don't know if you can see the. Do you see the WotC?
There you go.
Oh, it's a sticker from 1990. That's a WotC sticker that was based on a game. The game they were selling called The Great Dalmuti, but it says Life Isn't Fair. But I thought it would be amusing if I got a sticker that WotC made that had Life Isn't Fair written on it.
I've got a bag of dice.
I got a bag of dice. Let's see it again. Landon.
Show me the dice.
Ah, very nice.
Landon,
fun dice.
For the sake of the audience.
100-sided. Is that a 100-sided die?
Yeah.
Oh, hell yeah, it is. Show me that, motherfucker. Open that shit up, bitch. Show me that. Show me it.
All right.
Sorry for derailing.
This is one of the ones.
Barry's like leaning into his screen. Show me.
So this was made by a good friend of mine, who you can see the numbers there. They're nice.
I'll tell you what that is, Landon. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That is a beautiful piece.
Landon, for the sake of the audience and perhaps our new guests here, are there any famous scientists whose favorite class of D&D you could tell us about?
Yes. So I used to play D&D with Richard Feynman, who played as a bard.
Richard Feynman.
In fact, here's one of
Oh,
the,
wow.
the dice
Hello.
we used to play with.
Full
This is a
screen 'em,
nice,
full screen 'em.
Okay. Listen, I gotta do all this manually already. It takes a second. Ooh,
Oh yeah, look at that thing. That's like a slick of gasoline, isn't it?
yeah, petrol.
yeah, on there for
That is
but
beautiful.
yes, he loved to play a bar. He was a really enthusiastic bongo player, and would sometimes express his bard's opinion through the bongos. He wouldn't say something. He would
If you just want to say he's a stoner, just say it.
allegedly. For stuff. But yes, but that was a fun. He was really enjoyed. You know, I'm really into sort of the polyhedra stuff, but also how they were managed. So like, you know, this is a fun little.
Oh,
Nice.
look at
there.
these beautiful things, Landon. It's past midnight where I am. What are you doing to me? Is this even real? Oh, that's a 30-sided dice, right? Oh no, it's not. What, 50?
No.
50. Okay.
It's
The other one. No. Go back. No. Stop. Show me the one with the other. The one with the kind of. Yeah. Tell me about that.
So part of the thing as well is it lands on set, and so you have a pair of stuff depending on which side it lands on, right? You have three facing.
Yes.
You can use. That's going to give you up to, I believe this is a 60.
Ooh.
Right.
I love that. I want one.
A D60. So there's lots of things I found where people are very creative in there. And by the way, none of these dice have any intellectual property with that alleged company that alleges to own things.
I mean, it's a real company.
Well, they don't own the concept.
But yeah, no, they don't.
But
Yeah,
here's
they do not.
here's
They
a
don't
fun
even-
thing. Like, you know, you don't just do like, you know, the Euro pyramid. You want something like this that has.
Whoa, what the fuck?
Is that a D3?
Yeah.
Wow.
Right.
I like
So
that.
there's
Okay, I'll take 2 of
three.
that and 1 of the other one. So thanks. Yeah.
Yeah,
Three,
did
two,
you say
two,
your,
one for
did you say you had a friend that was making these?
yes.
Did they have a store?
I don't know if they have a store or not. Here, like a
Stop
here's
teasing us with things we
a
can't
D
have.
a
Landon.
A
D24.
Oh, look at
D24?
this. I have never seen a D24 in my life.
Landon, can
Yeah,
you move
a
that
six-
closer to the camera? There
Look
you
at
go,
that
right there.
Beautiful thing. Look at it. Oh my god, that is beautiful.
All right.
So it's a D6
Isn't
with
it?
4 options, so then it shows up on stuff. Yeah, so lots of fun things you can do
Wow.
with dice. You know,
I've never seen
yes,
a
I know you have a
D24 in my
computer.
life, and I've been doing role playing for years. I was the president of the University Role Playing Society when I was in UCC for a weekend, but I was still the president for a little while.
So like this one here is useful for, you have a D10 and then this
Oh, I have one of
stuff that
those.
gives you the 10.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
I have one of those. Yeah, it's a 10's D10.
Yes, so it stuff. But it sort of is a fun, you know, usual. It has, you know, the usual stuff, but there are some unusual things you can do with it, because you know,
Wow.
there's something fun about actually having a real die that is.
Hell yeah!
And
So
then
What
of
else does he
course,
have? What else does he have in the pack? What else does he have in the
we're
pack?
gonna have to have a whole nother stream with Landon and his dice and talking about dice ratios
like
and,
derailing everything.
statistics. No, it's
Yeah.
fine.
Chesh, you're gonna get a community guideline strike on that stream immediately. Come on.
Well, for what? Dice and math?
No, for you getting too excited about it.
Oh,
About the dice.
so Wizards of the Coast. What, I know what's led, but what do you think actually happened?
okay. So
Speculation time.
what's happened? So let's catch people up. So anybody who doesn't know what has happened
Yeah.
with Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro. Wizards of the Coast is owned by Hasbro. They used to have something called an open gaming license, and they had the open gaming license 1.0. And 1.0 was basically, hey, listen, we own stuff, but we're going to allow you to use our stuff to make your own stuff, essentially.
Mhm.
There was, and as Landon, I'm sure, will elaborate on, some problems with even the original OGL. They then tried to make some changes and called it 1.0A or 1.1A, I think. And people were pissed because they were trying to renege the original agreement and then also start adding in, like, they wanted people to report if they to wizards if they made over $50,000 in a year. They wanted to take access to take people's product if they made it and use it for themselves without paying those people. And they wanted to start taking amounts of money, which was, as far as I know, undisclosed percentages, but the rumor was that it was 25% after you made 75,000 in a year if you were a business. Oh, sorry, $750,000 in a year if you were a business or an individual. Then the D&D community flipped their collective lid about it. They were pissed. There were a lot of people who were suddenly very, very unsure about their businesses. And they made some changes. One of the things they were staunchly not willing to change was the retraction of the original OGL. They did remove the pricing, but then rumors started about what they were doing with D&D Beyond and starting to charge. The rumor was a $30 a month subscription fee to D&D Beyond, which is a platform that you can build your characters in, but as well as a platform where you can post your own homebrew stuff.
Which would be a 5-fold increase over the current price.
Yes, if that were the case. Now, I have done videos going a little bit more into detail about this. They did try and quash those rumors a little bit, but they did not really be very transparent about it. So they were like, well, we're not charging $30, but then didn't say what they were going to be charging. So, like, for all I know, it's $29.99. You know what I mean? Not that that was what they were going to do. It was just the messaging was not there.
$8 and you get a blue check mark on your character sheet.
Yay!
Woo! You gotta pay $8 per character.
Wait, no, slow down. No. $8 for all my characters. That was the deal. Don't go rewriting the deal.
All right. So Wizards opened up what they called a play test of the new OGL that they wanted to do. And so they got a whole lot of feedback on the survey, and they have since published the results of that survey, even though it's technically not supposed to be over yet. The survey was supposed to go until, I think, February 2nd. I'd have to double check the number, though. It was definitely till February. And then they have recently made an announcement, as you can see, that everybody seems to be reporting that they have folded and are deciding not to make any changes, except for that because they tried like a handful of things. One of them was the SRD being public domain, as well as, which is what they've done now. They've made the SRD, what is it called? Content Commons?
Creative Commons.
Creative Commons. Thank you, yes.
What's
Should
SRD?
we explain what an SRD? Yeah.
Yeah, SRD is basically like the rules as written in the book for like the concept of the game itself.
Yeah. It's basically their particular expression of the rules to D&D.
Right.
So
The system reference document.
Yes.
Yeah, system reference document. So
Version of
normally
file
with
I
a
just
game,
read.
right?
Yeah.
Like, let's say you wanted to make your own version of Monopoly. Well,
Yeah.
you can have a game with the same rules as Monopoly, but you can't have the same board design, and you probably can't have the same names for properties or the same particular tokens. Like if you try to like reproduce like the shoe or the particular little car or whatever, that's going to be a
All
problem.
trademark. Yeah.
But if you change all that, like you use streets from a different city, and instead of having a shoe, you have like maybe a stiletto, and instead of a car, you have a rocket or something, you might actually be able to get away with that. Now, granted, I'm not a lawyer. Go find a lawyer if you really want to do this. But anyway, what the SRD was supposed to do is say that, hey, if you want to use our rules to publish stuff compatible with our content, you can use the language of the SRD with this license so that you don't have to take on the extra labor of coming up with a new copyrightable, non-infringing version of the language expressing these rules. Now, was that strictly necessary? No, but it was nice, right? Because not everyone who wants to publish an adventure module wants to have to come up with a new way to say, like, take a DC 15 spot check.
Mm-hmm.
They want to just be able to say, okay, look, this is just taken straight out of the SRD. Here it is. And that was what the OGL was supposed to basically allow.
Right.
And now that it's in the Creative Commons, not only is it impossible for Wizards to disallow you using the SRD, they also can't bring it back from the Creative Commons. The only recourse Dungeons and Dragons has against anyone using their Creative Commons content is if they did not properly cite both the license and the actual originator, which is Wizards of the Coast. Now, they did lie a little bit because they said all you had to do was cite us with this text, and they gave some text. Technically, they're not allowed to demand that you use that particular text. The Creative Commons actually has its own citation requirements, and as long as you follow those, then you followed them.
Yeah.
However,
Yep.
I would actually say that, I mean, looking at the text, it's not like particularly egregious or anything, and like it does meet the requirements of the Creative Commons license. So I would expect most people probably will just copy paste that text because it's like
It's
whatever.
easy. Before we go too far into this, if you do want to follow the details, I've done a couple of videos on this, including having some creators coming on to talk about it, and Landon did come on as well and give some opinions on that. So if you do want to like dive into the nuance of what had happened, that does exist, and please go and check those out. They're really great.
I assume you'll put links in the description below.
Yeah, I'll add as many links as I possibly can. We're getting filled up on links though. I've been debating on putting it into a playlist, but we'll see. I'm waiting until it's like kind of resolved. And so some people are calling this resolved with Wizards giving up the changing of the OGL. There were a couple of things that were like phrasing in legalese that was like, I don't think that's how that works. And my problems were twofold for this. My problems were the way this was presented. And my other problem was my major problem seemed to be that Wizards was trying to claim rights on things they don't have rights to. But Landon, did you want to weigh in on this a little bit?
I mean, part of the thing as well, I thought that it appears is that, okay, so they put stuff that appeared to be Creative Commons. Mm-hmm. But just because someone says Creative Commons doesn't mean they actually have the right to that set. And so there are certain things that people who are lawyers who understand trademark, copyrights, and other intellectual property laws would question, right? Whether or not they own, for example, the game mechanics, because there appears to be legal opinions that seem to be reasoned well. I'm not a lawyer. That the actual game mechanics are not something that you can own, nor can you own dice, nor can you own a system, right? So one of the questions is whether or not that Wizards of the Coast puts this up in the Commons, whether or not you have to actually cite that. The other thing as well is that remember, it appears that Hasbro wanted Wizards of the Coast to be more revenue certain in they would have busy more money. And that they seem to be reaching for the ability to understand the revenue flow, and in some cases in particular, withdraw it if you didn't play, fair, what they consider to be fair value back to them. So, I still have a question about whether or not Wizards of the Coast should be relevant to the D20 community. My opinion, the D20 community would be best served by making Wizards of the Coast not relevant to their community, and you would, as a D20 player, would be best served by not making Wizards of the Coast integral to your gameplay. Right? The fact they even want to say Creative Commons is a potential problem.
Right.
And what? Say again.
Potential problem. I think you should consider your game and what you do as to whether or not you need to then go in and genuflect to Wizards of the Coast by putting in this sort of like I said, I think that the D20 community would be better served if Wizards of the Coast tried to convince the D20 community to pay attention to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's.
Well, honestly, sorry, go ahead.
There is one thing to be shouted out here is a lot of what was released appeared to be very corporate, and seemed to have little or nothing to do with the actual development teams, or the teams that were actually more closely related to the community, and the D&D Beyond teams. In fact, it almost read like it was entirely skipping their PR department. I can't. But there were a lot of people that were behaving incredibly inappropriately and sending things like death threats and
Not okay.
Don't do that.
and such
No.
to employees. Yeah, that's not acceptable. Don't do that shit. That's a big old yikes, and you're not helping anybody.
Yeah, not okay. Not an acceptable.
But what were you gonna
option.
say? We're gonna say, Dapper?
So one of the things I was going to say is that to a certain extent, at least in terms of like 5e D20 systems,
Mhm.
This basically makes Wizards of the Coast have to be relevant on their own merit, because the thing is, with a Creative Commons license, where literally the only legal requirement is that you cite the license and you cite the person who originated the document. You can do literally anything else you want with it. They do not have the right to in any way control what else happens. It basically does mean that if Wizards of the Coast wants to be, important and relevant, well, it's up to them now. They can't just coast on the fact that they're the ones who own the copyright to the game everyone plays, because frankly, ultimately they don't. And also, apparently, I haven't double checked this, but apparently the words beholder and illithid also appeared in the SRD, which technically means that while you can't use their depiction of beholders or illithids, you can use the words. So you could write a campaign setting and say, oh yeah, there's a beholder stronghold over there, and then just rely on your GMs to go figure out how to fill that in with actual beholders, which I thought was an interesting little oversight.
Yeah. So there's some that say that even the original 1.0a
some that
so-called
say
license,
take a shot, History
so-called
Channel
license is that's problematic as well. Again, because they're trying to potentially assert rights to things that are your community, that you have and that you create, right? So
yeah.
So my suggestion would be there appear to be other systems out there that are D20 compatible that don't have Wizards of the Coast trying to say make us relevant. We understand what Hasbro has done with things like Magic: The Gathering and some of that travesties. It's the same people that wanted to build a more certain revenue stream that the community reacted, but the result is not, they put out this so-called Creative Commons thing, we'll give them a pass. It's D20 communities should be themselves to produce their own content and to make use of things that are not impugned by Wizards of the Coast.
There's a couple things about this is I believe when I first read what was going on, I think I said that the thing that Wizards ought to do to fix this and start making right with the community as an entity would be to take 5th edition, since they're coming out with 6, take everything that they can in 5th edition and make it just publicly available. And that does seem to be what they've done here. The other thing people were asking for was a guarantee that this would not be reneged in any way possible. And I think that might be what they're attempting to do with this Creative Commons license.
I think it certainly is. And the reason is, fundamentally, you cannot revoke something from the Creative Commons.
Right.
You can publish something new that isn't in the Creative Commons, but fundamentally, once you publish a document and it contains the Creative Commons licensing language, that's it. It's now a Creative Commons document.
Yeah.
Most you can do is say, well, we don't like the document anymore. And then everyone else can say, oh, well, that's nice.
Yeah. Right. But my non-legal advice is, if you have a business or a trade in D20 community like things, seek get advice from a lawyer who has specialized in intellectual property on how to protect yourself from entities like don't just assume, now it's Creative Commons, I don't have to worry about it.
Well, there's also
their reputation.
There's also no signature required anymore.
Yeah.
Once it's
use that and I understand that there's sort of this open D&D type thing that's trying to be established, whereby the following thing is done, right? That you create something and you can give it away or sell it, that the people who receive it have the same rights that you do, right? The thing you don't want to do is to say, you have to come to me and I get to decide what the current license of the day is, right? You don't want Wizard of the Coast becoming the linchpin, the authoritative entity, the people you have to genuflect to, even if they try to release stuff, because by giving them power they don't have, you may be losing your ability to control your community or
and
control your product or your enjoyment. Yeah.
There's also like a degree of you're putting yourself on rocky things, because there's literally nothing stopping Dungeons and Dragons or Wizards or Hasbro from doing something like this again, right, in the future. And ultimately nothing they were doing or asking for was really illegal. There was definitely some really problematic language in some of their legal documents, but the initial OGL that they had presented was certainly not a matter of, although questionable and ethically questionable, the legalese was not nearly as problematic as it then later became.
Well, yeah, I don't think anyone, at least not that I'm aware of, was saying that the new proposed OGL is a problem because, like, the language in it is per se illegal. Now, there was the question as to whether or not you can actually deauthorize 1.0a, which, not being a lawyer, this isn't legal advice or anything like that, but I am of the opinion, based on actually looking at lawyers who are looking at this, that they did not have that authority.
Right. Barry, do you have any thoughts on this whole debacle?
I was thinking, yes. And going back to All the President's Men, a reference which completely failed to ignite imaginations the last time I used it. There's a line in that where it says, the problem with Watergate, he said, is that these guys are not too smart and things got out of hand. And I think this whole thing might be a lot simpler than we're thinking. I think somebody at WotC accidentally tuned into Critical Role one day, realized they're making a hell of a lot of money, and say, we got ourselves a slice of this. And then everything that happened after that was people who were not too smart and things got out of hand.
Yeah.
I think that's what happened.
So Barry, I might also along that line suggest that Hasbro, trying to increase their stock value and pay attention to their shareholders, saw that there was revenue potential within Wizards of the Coast that was basically slipping out the door, and wanted to see if they could get hold of that stuff. Plus, the purchase of Sun's company came with a cost, and they're trying to recoup their costs.
Yes.
And so I would posit as a guess that it was really sort of Hasbro return on shareholder value that was trying to be maximized, and that there were perhaps people within Wizards of the Coast who said, no, don't do this. But the corporate folks said, sorry, this is it. Do it, right?
There did seem to be.
Guys said no.
Yeah.
We actually have some good, really strong evidence that that's directly the case. So there's a few things. One is, the CEO of Wizards of the Coast, whose name I don't remember, but she was publicly in I believe it was a shareholder meeting, said that she believed that D&D was, quote, under-monetized. And that she wanted to get the kind of recurrent spending that you see in video games, which basically means she wanted to turn WotC into EA.
Yes.
Which
nobody likes EA.
No.
We said the same thing.
EA is repeatedly voted America's least popular country year after year for good reason. And so, like, we know that that's almost certainly the case. There have been leaks from D&D, or WotC employees saying that, the corporate attitude towards their customers is basically that the customers are just kind of an annoying obstacle that's in the way of the shareholders getting their money.
Mm-hmm.
And that they don't particularly care about the customers except to figure out exactly how much the customers will bear before running away. As it turns out, it's not that much. They actually won't bear a whole lot more than what's currently going on.
And to some extent, that might change the evaluation of Wizards of the Coast as an entity. But the D20 community, I think one of the things in particular to learn from this is that there are artists and creative people that put out really good content, really good products, so forth. I would highly recommend you pay them something if you think their asking price is there for their works, right? I think
Well, by
it's
top
very
clerics.
appropriate for somebody to make good money off of producing good products that the D20 community likes. Right? That's good.
Anymore. Why do we just buy things? Why do we always have to buy a license to use the thing? I remember I could just buy something and then I would own it. Do you remember those days?
Nope.
Yeah,
I'm a
products.
millennial. I don't remember ever owning anything ever.
All those dice were purchased by somebody who created them, right? And I was happy to pay the price because I thought good value. Same thing with the artwork, right? And so forth. So don't steal stuff.
So do we? After kind of watching all this happen over the course of months, what do we think the conclusion is here? Has anybody won? Is there any kind of is this over?
Yes.
Is there what do
Maybe.
you guys think the kind of the conclusion we can come to at where everything stands right now?
Who do you want to start?
Yeah, go for it, Deborah.
All right, so I think there are specific answers to those specific questions. One is, where do we stand? I don't think that it's necessary to continue a boycott, which is basically what's been going on. However, I do think that, it's probably the case that people have picked up new systems that they are starting to like and learn. And I don't think that that's going to be a cat that's going to be let out of the bag anytime soon. I think WotC has probably at least indefinitely broken their own effective monopoly, and I think that's probably a good thing.
Yep.
I think that in terms of has anyone won, I think the answer is yeah, the people who've most won are the people who are independent 5e content creators. So people who are putting out like third-party monster manuals, third-party campaigns, third-party campaign settings, those people won because now their business is secured at this point indefinitely. I'm not going to say permanently. I'm going to say indefinitely because there's there's a difference.
Yeah.
WotC clearly lost, no matter what they might say. They absolutely wanted to continue having a giant monopoly, and they have failed to secure that. Whatever they might say about it, they absolutely lost. And as far as the future goes, I expect that 1D&D will probably come out with an attempt at a much more restrictive license. And if they do, because remember, this 5.1 SRD that's in the Creative Commons now, that's only the 5e SRD. Right. 6.0 will presumably have a different set of documents. I expect that if they try similar shenanigans, it'll be like the 4th edition debacle, basically, where essentially
this isn't the first time they've done this.
Right. Yeah, so that's one of the things. The only difference between this and the 4th edition nonsense was that they didn't try to deauthorize the 3rd edition OGL, which is why Paizo came in with, Pathfinder.
Yep.
So I think they might try to make another restrictive license for 6th edition, and then I think what'll happen is probably just a repeat where everyone just ignores Dungeons and Dragons for 4 or 5 years. They figure out, oh wow, that was a big mistake, and they publish a 7th edition, and suddenly it's once again under some OGL that's reasonably unrestrictive, but perhaps not quite as unrestrictive as 1.0a, even though, like Landon has said, 1.0a was by no means a perfect document. I'm not sitting here pretending that it was. And so, yeah, I think that's where it comes. Is right now, I'm willing to drop the boycott, although I don't currently have any WotC purchases in mind. I'm currently, right now, I just got delivered to my door a rule book for a different, not even a Roll20 game. I want to try running with some friends. I just got, I actually was talking about it before we got on air, I'm just now getting the rules for Jackal's Bronze Age fantasy role-playing. Because I've always thought that there's too much focus in fantasy role-playing on medieval and maybe late antiquity settings. And I always liked things like the aesthetics of the ancient Mesopotamia and ancient Egypt and things like that. And that's exactly what this is. So it sounds right up my alley. I'm also probably going to be trying to play some more Call of Cthulhu from Chaosium. I'm trying to get
Bronze Age edition.
There you go. That would actually be a lot of fun.
Cthulhu, hell yeah.
That would be great.
I may or may not be sending Dapper something to play test in the near future.
Everybody in your
newsy
game
to
is
me.
worried about the sea peoples, but you're like, no, man, it's worse than that.
Oh no, there's like this Bronze Age game already has like its sea people's equivalent.
It's got the sea people.
very
Okay.
nice. Yeah, I mean they're called something else because they don't want to be that on the nose, but like it's got their own sea people. It's got
sea
fantasy.
people-
all
All
right. We're off track. We already went too
we're-
far off
yeah,
with the
yeah.
dice.
True.
Barry, what do you think?
I think that as long as there's money to be made, they will keep trying to squeeze different parts of their product and their licenses and everything to make as much as they can. I don't think this is the end of it at all. I think this is the end of chapter 5 or whatever.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah. Very.
So it's a very, I like the fact you asked a question, why you need a license at all, right?
Right.
I think as a D20 community member, you should, build your own game with your own house rules. And if people like your table rules, they'll play. I would encourage you, however, if you use art by somebody to acknowledge the artist and if necessary, buy it or play it, pay them. Pay the artist. I think that's quite a legitimate thing, but I wouldn't say, and I've never thought about boycotting Wizards of the Coast. I would say make Wizards of the Coast irrelevant to your gameplay. Don't allow them to be irrelevant there. Consider doing your own thing, and that's good. It's not, you don't have to have one common rule set to rule them all. In the darkness,
you're basically boycotting the boycott.
And use your own, but do your own things. So when I really strongly support supporting artists, right? When I got the mimeographed copies from Gygax or for someone who gave me Gygax's stuff, they mimeographed it and gave me copies of it. I liked what I saw and went out to try to buy it. Couldn't buy it, but they had a second edition thing out, and so I bought that. Right? That was a way of my honoring the creative things that people did in this world. I think that's quite fine, and it's quite proper for someone to offer a service, offer art, offer content that if you like, you can buy it from them. But
that's what YouTube's basically built off. YouTube is the way people make money on YouTube is through the honor system. They make a product that you can watch for free, and you choose to support them financially through other means.
I have a Patreon, by the way, everybody.
There you go.
And I have a Patreon of this person and that person, and I encourage you to consider doing it as well. But that's the thing, don't if Wizards of the Coast came out with a 6th edition. The question is, do you need to play? Do you need to honor that or even consider that? No, make it your own thing. Do your own stuff, right?
Remember
what happened in 4th edition? Not no one, but very few people honored it. Chesh was one of the weirdos.
It's not my fault. All right, so I'm not getting into that. What I'm showing on screen right now has been Hasbro stock since about May, April of last year, and if you'll notice, it starts ticking back up after December 14th. There, I know it's a little bit hard to see, but you can see it starts ticking back up. After December 14th, around December 21st is when D&D Beyond officially made a blog talking about the OGL changes, and that's when that uptick starts. And if you notice, when people actually started talking about it online, drop down. So
yeah, I do think that this is
take that information for what you will.
I think this is going to be a long-term hit to their bottom line ultimately, because like I said, I don't think you can let the cat out of the bag once the 5e players who I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, but most 5e players only play 5e.
Yeah, they destabilized a lot, and in doing so, I would suspect that a lot of people that were holding the game up, although they may continue to do so, will also be insulating their what they create, which I think is a good idea anyway.
I mean, I would expect that Hasbro, when they have their quarterly analysts report on their outlook, would have to factor into this what happened with Wizards of the Coast.
Yes.
That's sort of legally for saying, when they talk about looking forward, their whatever anticipated earnings they had from this so-called concentration of power in Wizards of the Coast has a diminished potential. Again, I don't think you need to boycott Wizards of the Coast. Just consider whether or not you need them. You as a D20 member, you as a D20 community, may not need a corporate entity telling you how to play your game or what you can do. Even if you say, Creative Commons, you may find other artists or other people that you wish to honor instead.
I like Landon's solution. I do. I think because he says even a boycott is too much engagement for him. I like that.
Yeah, fair. All right, so I'm going to move us over here. We have our ad for today, and I hope you guys all enjoy it. It's not very long, so please, I'll be adding a link to this as well. So, here you go.
The Beholder is one of the most iconic monsters in all of tabletop role-playing. This is how I made my own beholder-shaped dice tower. I started with this bagel shape in Blender. Then I stretched and twisted and distorted the top and the bottom of the bagel until it was this weird big toe shape. Ugh. Then I added a bunch of lumpy mashed potatoes and pointy teeth until it looked like an evil California raisin. Add a bunch of long, veiny, throbbing eye stalks, and voila, a beholder! Throw that puppy on the 3D printer, play a game of Connect the Stalks, and our prime suspect is ready for priming. Now that we're all primed, it's time to paint. First the lipstick, then some guy liner, a liberal coat of bronzer, and some blush. Tickle the tongue a little. And this nerd is ready to roll some dice. So there you have it, start to finish, the entire process with which I made this nefarious beholder-shaped dice tower. I'm giving the STL files away because I love TTRPGs and I really love this community. So check the download link below or above. I don't know, it probably depends on the format. And I'm Jesse Jurdak, and I have your back.
Aw, thanks, Jesse.
I kind of wish that's pretty cool.
Right?
That
right?
is pretty cool.
Also, for those of you who want to follow that tutorial, when you're in Blender and you go to Shift Add, you're going to want to look for the mesh object torus, because donut shape isn't going to be in there.
That's fair. That is fair.
Yeah. So that's my only critique of the tutorial.
If you do that, you might want to put in a tip jar, something for the person if you liked what they do, right?
If you want to,
this is how a community does things.
Yeah, if you want to go and support Jesse, he is available on Twitch. There's spelling and stuff is actually in the corner when it loops around. If you look at the bottom corner right now, it shows the Free Thought Profit, which Barry is part of. So you can absolutely go and support those guys. I think Barry's also actually starting a new podcast as well. If you want to tell us a little bit about that.
Nice.
I am starting a new podcast at some point, which has been delayed for reasons beyond our control, but it's called The Jib. And it's about the many and hilarious episodes involving the CIA and the FBI and other American law enforcement and intelligence communities.
Yeah. So yeah, you can go
allegedly
and support that there, as well as there are ways to support Jesse if you do go to now it's showing. If you go and find his links, which are also down below. He's got like a
thing is
coffee.
Cool, right?
Right? You can go and make your own if you want. Okay, so next bout of business, speaking of CIA and governments, NATO and Turkey and Sweden.
Oh, here we go. All right.
Here we go.
Right.
Barry, do you want to take this one away? You want to start?
Sweden, well, this was all kicked off, of course, by Putin's invasion of Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
We used to call it Ukraine, and now we just call it Ukraine. Which was, I guess, you could say even that was fallout from Putin's 2014 annexation of, not Odessa, what do you call it?
Crimea.
Crimea, thank you, of Crimea. And everybody just said, you know what? It doesn't really matter, you can have Crimea. So, of course, what's he going to do?
Except for me.
And
I didn't.
You what?
I didn't think it was okay for them to have Crimea.
Oh, no, that was sarcasm.
Okay.
Sarcasm. That was sarcasm. No, people didn't think that was good. No, but their history teaches us that when these megalomaniac guys take a little bit, they're not going to stop unless somebody says something, right?
Mm-hmm.
So of course he's going to go for Donbass and Luhansk, and I thought what he was going to do is he was going to move into Luhansk and Donetsk and stay there and cause a lot of trouble. I did not predict he was going to flatten the entire Ukraine. I did not see that coming. Now, because of this, his stated purpose in doing this is that he doesn't like NATO countries on his borders, and he thinks if Ukraine joins NATO, that he'll have another NATO country on his borders, and that's blah, blah, blah. But the way to avoid having a NATO country on your border is not to invade a place that will give you 4 new ones. Also, he would have had a guy somewhere on staff to tell him that if you invade Ukraine on that basis, you're going to have a rush of Baltic countries to join NATO tomorrow. And that's essentially what we're seeing here with Sweden and Finland. They're rush joining NATO because of the Russian aggression. He's basically causing what he claims he's trying to stop. So I don't believe that's his problem at all. I think something else is going on, and I'm not sure what it is. But it's not that he's afraid of NATO. I don't believe that for a second. Turkey is a member of NATO, and I think if you want NATO membership, you need a full house, right? You can't just have a majority. You need a full house and no new member.
Yes, you need in order to make changes to NATO's articles, which would say who is a member, you need to have unanimous consent.
Yes, Turkey has a problem with Sweden for various reasons.
Mm-hmm.
One of the reasons is that Sweden has a bunch of people in Sweden who are Turkish dissidents and PKK members. And what Turkey now is pretending is the problem is that some Nazi guy burnt a Koran in front of an embassy in Stockholm, which is, I guess it's very unkind and so on. But their real problem is far more political than that. Turkey's been whipping up this Muslim thing for political capital for some time now. Erdogan doesn't give a shit about Muslims, but he's willing to milk the whole Islam thing and make his country as Muslim as suits him to do so. So if he says, oh, I got annoyed by them burning a Koran outside, so it doesn't affect a single motherfucker in Turkey if somebody burns a Koran in Sweden. But he's going to say he's getting annoyed about it when he's actually annoyed about the political situation, which you will find a lot less easy to defend because the PKK are kind of right.
And what does PKK stand for?
Oh, I'm sorry. PKK would be the Kurdish separatists, the Kurd who Turkey would regard as terrorists, but really they're just Kurdish separatists. It's like calling the IRA terrorists. I mean, you can if you want for varying definitions. Sorry, Landon, you're looking to say something.
But I think you're right. I'm just saying yes. Keep going.
Oh yeah. So that's basically the problem. And Turkey now realizes they have something over Sweden that they can use to leverage and hopefully get some of these separatists back to put in the worst place a PKK separatist can be is a Turkish jail. And also, there's very complicated extradition arrangements. But Turkey can block it because you need a full sweep if somebody new wants to go into NATO. And Sweden is kind of sending guys over to the Turks and maybe they can negotiate something or something. But everybody in Sweden and Turkey knows what the real problem is. And it's not that they let some far-right wankstain burn a Koran specifically to try and inflame Muslims, to try and get people hurt, because that's what they want. These far-right people hunger for blood. They want to be punched in the face. That is their victory condition. What do you mean? No.
What? Nobody said no.
Dinosaur said no.
Huh?
No?
Dinosaur said no. Wait a minute, are you on a loop?
No.
Yeah, he's on a loop.
Yeah,
he's not shaking his head.
Oh, okay. No, you're not reacting to your
no attention to the... Yeah, no.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's just a loop, sorry.
Okay, no. Right, yeah. So this
No,
is
Dapper, now you have to say no so we can hear what Barry's going to say in rebuttal.
But the guy in charge of Turkey, Erdogan, is smash friendly himself, so he has no problem using and rubbing up these Muslims into a frenzy that they would never have been in other. Turkey was always, since Ataturk anyway, was quite famously a secular Muslim country, and he's making it worse. And of course, you're going to get like Muslim. I don't know if you'd even call them fundamentalists, but you're going to get a certain brand of Muslim extremist who will be happy enough to work with that. And man, this shit is always going to blow up in your face. It's always going to blow up in your face if you try and play with religion like that. It's going to blow up in your face. And Erdogan doesn't give a shit because he'll be out of business by then, and then he'll be leaving them with a Turkey that's half extremist, and all because he didn't like the PKK.
Yeah. So the complex problems of Kurds and holding a peninsula is a complex problem, and Erdogan, in my opinion, saw an opportunity when
There you go.
traditionally in Turkey, when the military saw that the government was getting a bit too tied into religion, would step in. And there appeared to be an attempt to do that, but that attempt failed, unlike many other times where they succeeded. And Erdogan used the failure of trying to step in as a means to boost his power, right? And you're right, very much, very accurate in terms of he's playing to this sort of group within Turkey to try and build his base. Much like, it's no different than Trump going in front of a church and holding up a Bible upside down and saying, "I'm a Christian," right? To try to bring in votes.
Correct.
He doesn't.
It's exactly like that.
He doesn't care, but he sees an opportunity there. Now, one of the things that happened.
This is Kevin Sorbo waving around pretend dead babies because he's an extremist who has ideas in his brain, and they're the only ones who will accept him enough to feed his ego.
So if you go back to the spot where the map is, right? Let's go back to the map. If you can scroll to the spot.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
With the map. In this situation, Finland, in particular, has a history with Soviet Union, Russia, and being invaded and repelling them, and in fact,
winning their battles.
Yes, and Finland has a fairly significant civilian military integration, right? Or their service, so forth. They're actually quite primed to deal with this repelling and the invasion of Russia. But Finland and Sweden as well both kind of play this game of, well, we're not exactly aligned, but not exactly not aligned. We're trying to be neutral. And in fact, during various crises with the Soviet Union, Sweden sometimes came into play as an intermediate broker, right? That they were not pro-Soviet, they were not anti-Soviet. They tried to remain neutral. The problem, of course, occurred was that with Putin's ill-advised war on Ukraine,
ill-advised.
I'm trying to be dramatic here. That this basically scared both Sweden and Finland, particularly because they, for example, one of the things that Sweden is particularly concerned about is there's a little bit of Russia which is discontinuous. If you can point at the spot,
Kaliningrad.
It's near next to Poland. Yeah, can you point at that? Do you know where it is?
You used to call it Königsberg where Kant lived. Now they call it Kaliningrad.
Yeah. No, it's up above Poland.
On the coast.
Right there in the coast, right? That's a bit of Russia that unfortunately was given to them. I don't think that they should have been given at the time. This spot, that spot up there, that was, and so they have a bases there, and so NATO, on the other hand, would see that someone like Sweden and Finland have very significant militaries. They have very significant technology. They're not lightweights by any means. It probably Finland and both Finland and Sweden as NATO members would bring to the table about as much firepower and strategic things as any other of the prime members of NATO. It would be really to NATO's advantage to have them be in close cooperation. But traditionally, both Sweden and Finland tried to play neutral, but seeing the antics of what Russia has done and why Russia is doing it, not just, we think there's Nazis in Ukraine, stupid stuff like that. They said, we need to be more integrated with our friends in the region and applied for NATO membership. Unfortunately, Turkey has a economy which is in the tank, to put it mildly. I mean, their inflation is somewhere between 40 and 70% inflation annually, other things like that. And so what Erdogan saw as an opportunity is to say, we've got an election coming up, so I can pretend to play to some Islamic people inside the country, and I can demand things, and in particular, behind the scenes demand things to get what I want. And some of that has to do with NATO, I'm sure, offering money, offering cash infusions of things, try to help Turkey's economy temporarily. So I think the Turkish elections coming up are going to be key in determining whether or not Erdogan manages to stay in power or loses. And it probably comes down to behind the scenes NATO members bribing Turkey to have Turkey abstain and not veto the entrance of Finland and Sweden into NATO. I think the world will be better off by having Finland and Sweden more integrated with Europe to do what? To try to cooperate on containing Russian aggression.
To help with Scotland independence.
This Russian thing, by the way, to give you an example of how integrated and how networked everything is in this. You see that map there? Do you see the Serbia?
Yes.
You see the Romania? See Romania there?
Yeah.
Okay. Buenos Aires to all my Romanian friends. Chesh.
Yep.
Right next to it there is Serbia, right to the bottom left of it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And underneath Serbia, you can see in very small letters, right underneath Serbia is Kosovo.
Yes.
Russian Dacia to all my Kosovo friends. All right. See Yeni. Now.
There's Bosnia and Herzegovina as well in there. Yeah.
Yeah, but Kosovo now is the thing we're looking at, and I'll explain why. Kosovo is what you call Schrodinger's state, in that it exists depending on who's looking at it and how and when. Right?
Yes.
They declared independence in 2008, and Serbia refuses to recognize their independence. Serbia conducted a genocide of Kosovar Albanians in 1999. They just went in and wanted to wipe out every motherfucker in Kosovo that was Albanian. Kosovo is sorry for getting dark at this hour of the night. Kosovo is 95% Muslim, 95% Albanian. So those people are Albanians.
Barry's not being hyperbolic. I mean, there are people who were brought to The Hague and tried for war crimes because of that. This is not just some little.
No, I'm not overstating it. They made a genuine effort to wipe out every single one of them, and the Serbs feel like that now. The only thing holding off the Serbs is a NATO force called KFOR in there, and the fact that they know the Americans and the British are united in not letting that happen. That's the only thing holding Kosovo together right now. Serbia is full of people on the ground, normal people. They're like a Slav version of Hasbara, who go around the internet typing shit under any kind of article that says Kosovo are real people, that says Kosovo is Serbia, meaning the home province of Serbia, right? Because the Gamezistan, their war monument, is in there. To give you an example of how far back this goes, the Battle of Kosovo was in 1389. So that'll give you an example of how long ago this goes, right? It goes back a long time about how you define Ottoman Empire stuff and how you define what Serbia is, right? A lot of Serbians believe that Kosovo is Serbia and they have a right to it, and the Albanians should just fuck off. And if they have to fuck off at the end of a gun, well, then that's just the way it has to be. They think of them as like rats, as scum, right? And they need to get rid of them. Now, Serbia is watching very carefully what Russia is doing in Ukraine, because Serbia is the only country in the Balkans that's aligned with Russia. Serbia had a march. While we were all having marches in all our cities and countries saying, free Ukraine, free Ukraine, there was a march, a very well-attended public march in Beograd, the capital of Serbia, in support of Russia's invasion of Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
That's the kind of people they are. And Vucic did not give a shit. Right? So, they're looking at these things now. They've been rattling sabers. Last December, they started causing all sorts of trouble. There was troop movements on the border, and they were saying, well, we should really move across the border because there's Serb villages inside Kosovo and we need to defend them. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah.
We're entitled to what Hitler said about Sudetenland.
Yep.
And like Putin's invasion of Ukraine and like Kosovo, there were some Germans in northern Czechoslovakia at the time. So it's not like he licked it off the stones. It was just an incredibly stupid and brutal thing to say, even though there was an element of truth to it. Otherwise, it wouldn't have taken off. So they're already moving up their armed forces on the border here, and they're waiting to see what's going to happen. And if the people think this Russia-Ukraine thing is only going to affect Russia and Ukraine, they're mental. It's already spilling out of Turkey and Sweden.
Right.
And it's going to affect Kosovo as well. And those people have done nothing except exist and be Albanian. And again, it's going to be it's just going to be and that's why it annoys me when I hear people saying, "Oh, like let Putin have them." Why is everybody so upset? Like, if you want to avoid a world war, maybe get into negotiation with it. It's not just about. It's about destabilizing the entire region. And fuck me, do you really want to destabilize the Balkans?
I will take this moment to say that we did make it an hour and 48 minutes before we got to the Hitler bell. So ring, 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 Hitler bell.
So So Barry,
No, no. Do not be sorry for talking about what's actually going on any place. You should not apologize for that.
Yeah, sorry for bringing me there, but I listening. Excellent discussion regarding issues on Serbia, Kosovo, and that region, and I think it's well to understand that part of what's happening here is this Russian sort of a policy about exceptionalism, that they view Russians as exceptional, and that areas that have lots of Russians should be under Russia, right? So if you look at the map, they look at places like Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania. They're up in their areas of Poland, areas of Slovakia, Hungary, Romania, Bulgaria, Serbia. These regions that have lots of ethnic Russians, Russia believes should be under the influence of Russia. Now, people kind of make the mistake of saying, well, Putin's trying to recreate communism or Soviet Union. No. Right? Putin, on the other hand, behaves as if he wants to be the new czar, exerting the influence over areas of Russian, the Russian enclave, Russian areas.
It does seem very like old Tsar Anastasia time period-esque.
Yeah.
Well,
and
more like
on the other hand,
period.
the other hand, you have places, countries like Poland, who will remind Putin, dudes, you were, you claim you're going into denazify Ukraine. You were the people who were in league with Hitler to invade Poland. I mean, don't forget, Stalin invaded Poland too.
Right.
Well, wait. It was more cynical than that. In the Warsaw Uprising, Stalin told the people in Poland that if you rise up against the Nazis, we will rush in to defend you. Right? The Nazis went in. Stalin did nothing. The Nazis trashed the place. And Stalin was playing the long game because he knew in a long enough timeline he would be invading Poland. And when he got there, all the nationalist people who would normally have been there to fight against him would be gone. That's exactly what happened. He just walked straight in because all the Democrats are dead.
And so, but the other side of the coin, the other problem is that there are areas where just because you speak Russian or are ethnically Russian doesn't mean you are a Putinite, right? And so, on the other hand, you see countries, countries that are in that region that are concerned about, well, if we have this large Russian enclave, will Putin try to go and claim us as well, right? It is the higher irony. Hitler used the invading the Sudetenland, Poland, those things as Prussia as a, well, there's Germans there, and therefore we, that should be part of Germany.
There was Germans there.
And it's true, but Putin's playing the same Hitler game. I'm not trying to be hyperbolic about it. He's doing the same thing. No,
it's not hyperbolic at all. It's accurate.
Right.
And so unfortunately, he's got Belarus, right? The schmuck that runs Belarus, a stinking, dirty schmuck, that went and kills dissidents and so forth, is probably going to be one of the people involved, people believe, in an invasion of Ukraine from the north.
Belarus is a client state. I don't think it's too far to say it's a client state at this stage.
And even if you are Space Jesus, Musk, who says, "Well, just give Ukraine to Russia," blah blah blah.
God, don't take Elon Musk's advice or opinion on politics seriously about anything. God, dear Lord, please.
It isn't going to stop because Moldova, right? Putin considers should be under his influence. He considers Romania, Bulgaria,
I think the Romanians would be happy
Hungary,
to
Serbia, Czech Republic, Poland, Lithuania, Estonia, Latvia, as that's that. But he realizes that there's this NATO bloc there, and in fact, I think it would be justice to help ensure that countries like Finland and Sweden join it. Erdogan, on the other hand, trying to placate his trying to get reelected, wants behind the scenes money and other bribes to not veto their entrance. The world would be better off if NATO helps contain Russian exceptionalism, right? And unfortunately, for for Russia. Russia has amazing science. They're good in mathematics, rocketry, other things that they have a lot to contribute, which has been wasted by Putin.
Right.
Putin instead. Right now, the situation is I can't imagine countries really seeing Russia as being exceptional. Right. They keep drawing red lines and saying this is a red line, and guess what, Putin? No one cares.
Right.
You instead of making Russia an exception, you are becoming less and less meaningful to the rest of the world.
I find it odd to see the number of maybe this is just me, and maybe I'm biased, and you guys can correct me on this, and maybe put some perspective on this. I find it odd the number of specifically Republican extremist Americans who are very much individualistic, very much nationalistic of their own country, but any other country being nationalistic or being like, hey, no, we want to be our own country and have our own independence, they're like, fuck them, give them to Russia.
Well,
I find it odd.
Republicans that are anti-Ukrainian.
Only America is exceptional.
Oh, right. There's only America and not America. Right.
Because US has as a whole this disease that unless you're number one, you're crap. And that's a real big problem. Again,
they're not very.
There is a lot.
How is? Wait. Sorry, before you go on, I know you have a bigger point here, but I need to jump in on unless you're crap, like you're number one. Unless you're number one, you're crap. But when was the last time America was number one about fucking anything?
I mean,
COVID-19
when we lose
cases,
to Canada
very much.
in hockey and get the silver medal to Canada, it's in America it's seen as a failure as opposed to we're number two, yay!
Right. Okay, so
you can't celebrate. So and understand there's a lot of really amazing things going on in Russia, and I have a number of former students from Russia who have the level of education, level of accomplishment there is quite a lot to be proud of for Russia. So I'm not anti-Russian. What I am is critical of this sort of Russian nationalism, which goes more than just puffing themselves up, but believes that they have the right to and the authority to basically grab and reestablish the Tsarist Russia and its influence. And far from making themselves another Peter the Great Russia, Russia has become less and less relevant, less and less meaningful to sort of. I mean, if your friends are people like North Korea, to go in and that's how you need to do to prop up your ego, you've got some desperate problems. But the sad thing is that there are many Russians who saw the writing on the wall and have taken off. There's a brain drain there. I favor, as long as Putin continues these wars of aggression, not Ukraine, not just Ukraine, but elsewhere around the world where he's pushing it, I favor continued economic sanctions, right? And I think they're going after Putin's assets or assets he indirectly controlled, making him pay for his war crimes is I think is important. And supporting those countries.
He's threatened to turn off the gas pipes if they put more sanctions on it.
Yeah, that's what Landon was talking about last time when he had to be like, I'm not saying that there should be terrorism.
Germany runs,
but I'm very critical of Europe's use of petrochemicals out of Russia, right? And I would like to see the energy taps turned off, right? And instead make use of other means, right? Make Russia like as an economy power? Irrelevant. What?
What land? Other means of energy? What, like nuclear power or something? Is that what you're saying?
Or and other means, right? For example, there are things where Turkey is talking about having pipelines into places like Kazakhstan bypass Russia, right? And essentially, boycott Russian petrochemicals. Make and I agree the fact that they put a price cap on the amount that they're willing to pay for Russian oil. Because Russia said, you got to pay us in rubles.
Yes.
Problem with that is Russia gets to decide how many of your Canadian dollars or euros or British pounds or so forth
essentially control
equal into their rubles. So they actually control the price. And so what people like Europe said is, this is the maximum price we're going to pay. I would like to see Europe rapidly move towards a thing where they could just turn off those taps and say, tell Putin to go play par, right? Drink his own oil, breathe his own farts, right?
Right.
Also, on the other side of the coin, it's very important for those Russians trying to escape Russia to have, welcome homes in places, because just because you're Russian doesn't mean you agree with Putin.
Right. That's a very important thing to drive home.
Just because you were in Germany doesn't mean you agreed with Hitler. Sorry, go ahead, Barry.
Yes.
Putin does have a lot of support in Russia.
Yes.
Yes.
Because there's a
I
lot of propaganda.
I believe the next election, if he's up for re-election, it is quite likely he will legitimately win.
Legitimately, yes.
For once.
Yes.
Unlike some other people.
I think he's quite. We're not talking about someone like Gaddafi who would get unanimous consent of everyone. But I think if the world needs to do an economic boycott, I think they need to identify friends of Putin's assets and seize them. They need to avoid buying any petrochemicals. They need to avoid any cooperation in space, and essentially treat Russia as a pariah, just like North Korea or other,
Why don't you shut down the joint space program as well?
Yeah. I mean, I think at this point we have to.
Okay.
Right. I think we've and this is to basically deliver a lesson to Putin. And so
it is an extreme circumstance, right? It has gotten very extreme.
So when the Russian ambassador gets up in the UN and Pontic is about red lines and blah 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 things, you just reply and say, you're blowing hot air. You, the occupiers of what was once the Soviet Union security seat that you currently occupy, because I don't believe the Russian seat on Security Council is legitimate. It was the Soviet Union, not Russia. Now, that being said, you basically treat them just like when North Korea stands up in pontificate, you say, blow it out your ass, right? We don't care. Your military is not effective.
Maybe we need
your
a new
economy
UN.
is irrelevant. And until and unless you agree to play nicely with the world, you can sit in your own corner. Time out, Putin. Sit in your own corner, and to help contain Putin, Finland and Sweden needs to join. We have to figure out how to bribe Turkey to not veto stuff, and bit of you Hungary, because they're doing a little bit of weird stuff as well. I think that'll be help in trying to contain the Russian aggression.
It is certainly complicated, and you're right. Both of you are very right in that it is certainly spread and is people. I do think it's really problematic that people are trying to bar others from joining NATO due to, what would you call it, religious reasons, personal reasons. What would you even describe what Turkey is doing as?
The block of Sweden.
Yeah.
That's political, pure political. He's calling it religious, but it's all political.
Right, but okay, but what's his political reason? Is his political reason I know
Sweden is harboring for free speech reasons and asylum reasons a number of people, journalists and I guess dissidents who are political dissidents in Sweden. And Turkey wants them back to put them in Turkish jails.
Okay.
I understand that certain PKK members knew how to trigger Erdogan, right? Burn a Quran, do a
call the leader of China Winnie the Pooh.
Turkey go in and hyperventilate and say, and that was they played it as well.
So they're pulling the I'm an oligarch and you can't talk bad about me, and because you talked bad about me and were critical of the government, we're not going to let Sweden join NATO because you were letting people talk bad about me. Free speech ?
And this guy who burnt a Quran.
So again, I am not anti-Russian. I am critical of the Politburo of Putin's government critical of their military Wagner Group. I think that in my opinion, Putin is a war criminal. The head of the Wagner Group, they need to have a reward for his arrest and brought to The Hague for also war crimes. Mm-hmm. I would basically put out and say if Putin dares to leave Russia, he should be seized and brought and tried for war crimes.
Dapper, do you have any final thoughts on this? I want to let you kind of wrap this one up a little bit because you haven't said too much yet, but we are gonna start getting close on time. And we got one more thing to cover.
I don't have a whole lot to add past what was already added. I do want to say that, like, hey, if you have a local Russian-owned business, don't not go there because of Russia being shitty. Because chances are, your local Russian food restaurant is owned by the grandkids of some couple that came over from Russia, and they're probably not super happy with Putin either. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't go eat their borscht. So
and to have some Russian food is wonderful.
Can we
their dairy products are wonderful.
Have learned from World War II and not treat people who were from or are from Russian as if they are currently actively supporting.
Do a repeat.
Let's not do that.
Yeah, I'm proud to have a number of former students, former interns from Russia, and in part I hired them because the quality of the Russian education system is exceptional, right? Their ability to understand fundamentals and their training of stuff of someone that has a degree is quite extraordinary, right? And so there's much of the Russian people that is wonderful in the world, and they present a culture, a cuisine, so forth that's unique. It is the Politburo. It is the stroking schmucks that push out Putin's stuff that needs to be made irrelevant. And unfortunately, that's going to mean making Russia an economic pariah, and not treating the Russian military as some great fear-mongering somewhere. They've made themselves irrelevant, and they need to be as relevant as Wizards of the Coast is to the D20 community.
Ooh,
but so we do have two things, and I'm gonna put a vote in the chat, and you guys chat. You can let me know which one would you rather we cover as our last topic. And I should have started the poll earlier. That's my bad. We're gonna call it "Would You Rather," and because we do have Barry here, we should have AAI because AAI has been pulling up some absolute nonsense recently. And what we can do during this, while you guys vote on this, is we can give you a brief of each one. So AAI is Atheist Alliance International. And Barry, do you want to give us a brief, like what you would tell people to get them interested in hearing about what's gone on?
You know what? I can just. They had an EGM.
Wait. I gotta tell them what the other topic is first. And the other topic is Floridia education. All right. Okay, go ahead, Barry. Thank you for waiting.
They had an EGM that was an absolute car crash in every possible way. It was the weirdest EGM I've ever seen in my life. Also, we're doing a Free Thought Profit podcast tomorrow night where we will have breaking news about even further AAI fail. I'm not going to talk about that tonight because that would be morally wrong.
That is fair and reasonable. Oh, this poll's going fast. The briefing for the Florida education situation is Florida is attempting to defund and remove as much of the education system as possible. They're basically trying to.
Do you even want to know what Florida is doing?
Yeah, they're just crippling the situation.
Jesus. Right. Oh.
This is actually a really close poll.
We live in dark times. I suppose I better vote. Will I vote for my own thing or is that too...
Yeah, you can vote for your own thing. Go for it.
By the way, I want to point out that Ben Hofen, whose relationship count is approximately e to the iPi plus 1.
0.
Voted. It's important to note that he voted.
Good. Dapper, do you have a preference?
No, not really. I mean, they both sound like great dumpster fires.
That is true. Landon, what are you thinking?
Well, AI is a smaller group of people that have done, I
In
think,
Florida.
more concentrated shenanigans, right? From a DFF point of view, AI it has more pull,
The
but
dumb per person
Florida
ratio is higher
education
for AI.
is
Get off the goddamn fence,
It-
Landon. Pick one.
I would probably recommend the AI for that, because I think there are some shenanigans there that some of the people in here have more ties with, as opposed to saying Florida.
Florida's more of a
that's
wish
sort
list
of-
thing that we all kind of aspirationally want to trash.
Yes.
I do want to share my joke that I made in the back before we were live, because I was like, oh no, the one thing that can stop Florida man, a librarian. But
Coming soon to cinemas, Conan the Librarian.
AAI in
Yeah.
Florida. I think AAI is in Cali, isn't it?
They're registered in California, yes.
Well, didn't they lose some of their status in California because of the
I wrote an
nonprofit
article
status?
for Only Sky about how they lost their Council of Europe status, yeah. They lost their participatory status in the Council of Europe for lack of, they didn't submit anything in the last 4 years. No, not a single peep out of them.
Oh boy.
I mean, I wonder when the UN will revisit that notion. You know what the process is?
I also
the
wonder when the UN will revisit that notion. I wonder hard and long and hard and roughly. I wonder when the UN revisit that notion.
Yes.
What are you, a philosopher? Wondering hard?
I wonder hard and roughly behind exactly
so,
when the UN
so just out of
revisit
curiosity,
that
while
notion.
the polls is going on, I know that Lawrence Krauss is supposed to be some sort of mediator thing in an alleged meeting.
Dude, you just said you want to hear about the AI thing instead of the Florida thing. Stop teasing me.
So the vote was that Florida education got a 62%, and AAI did get a 37%. So here's what we're gonna do. We are going
Who won?
Florida.
Yeah, then we're talking about Florida.
Yeah, so here's what we're gonna do, because this isn't a democracy. So here's what we're gonna do. We are gonna do a mini update for AAI, and then we'll actually talk about Florida. Right? Because then we can, because I want to highlight what you and the Free Thought Profit guys are doing, and how hard you guys have been working and trying to follow the shenaniganry, because it is a forever, but wait, there's more. And so we're gonna let Barry give us the lowdown and fill us in on what you can fill us in, and give people like a really solid ass teaser for going to watch your thing soon.
First of all, here we go. I wrote a 1,300 word article for Only Sky on the AAI EGM, and the title of it is AAI declares war on Michael Nugent. Right now, that's clickbait title, but it's also exactly what happened. Now, I'm just gonna give you one little, because I write a lot better than I talk. I don't know if you picked up on that. So I will just give you a summary of the things that I've never seen in an EGM before that happened at this AAI EGM, right? That's like a little bit of my article. I'm just going to read it out, and then we go to Florida. Is that okay?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, here we go. At the start of the meeting, 4 voting managers were introduced who took 2 minutes each to gush freely about how amazing AAI is. All of these people materially benefited from AAI fundraising campaign. 2, delegates were often unsure of what the motions were. 3, delegates were interrupting votes with amendments to those motions. Delegates were voting on one motion, while other delegates were shouting amendments to previous amendments to that motion. Accordingly, the wording of some motions were edited on the fly. 4, at least one delegate abstained from a number of votes for the stated reason that he did not understand what was going on. 5, Krauss repeatedly allowed observers with no speaking rights to contribute to discussions, and delegates made many unchallenged accusations. And the last one is the 5th motion. Business as usual was the name of the motion. Was essentially a motion to agree that AAI are amazing and they should continue to be amazing. I had planned a satirical tweet that one motion would be that the board agree that the board is amazing and no one should question them, but reality unfortunately made that redundant. That is that one paragraph in my article. You can read the rest of it if you want, and we're going to be talking more about that tomorrow in not my podcast. It's Seamus and John's podcast that I'm allowed to be a guest on, called The Free Thought Profit. Now we can move on to Florida if you like.
Sure.
Maybe AI should sell its rights to Space Jesus so that he can own that as well.
Oh boy.
Yeah,
It might get more.
He could probably
get
pay
more
30
functionality.
billion or something. Yeah, maybe
Now-
he could pay 30 billion.
That might upset Elon's ever-growing Republican base.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
So would you say, Barry, that Kraus did a good job, a bad job, or a medium job?
I've never seen an EGM. Just another thing I've never seen an EGM is a facilitator. Like EGMs usually have a chairman, and that chairman is usually the guy who's in charge of the organization. It doesn't have to be, but usually it's the guy in charge of the organization. I've never heard of anybody drafting in a special guest star to run an EGM.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So there
Well,
are
Kraus,
people
by the way,
who.
Go,
A question,
Ben.
Barry. Is there are people who are critical of AI who wanted to have certain questions answered. Were those people allowed to ask their questions, or was only the allowed members able to?
There's a whole thing about that, and I did the best I could to summarize the fucking mess that is the answer to your question in the article. And I think I was not entirely happy with it because I like making things absolutely clear and pulling out threads and saying to people, look, this is what happened, and linking to sources and so on. And it was very difficult because the whole thing was just a screamy, shouty, chaotic shit circus. And there was people who spoke who shouldn't have been allowed to. There was people trying to suggest motions, and they had to get other. Oh, see, look, I can't even talk about it. It was just a mess.
So let's presume that the UN reviews AAI and decides that they don't meet UN standards for organizations.
Mm-hmm.
Let's presume that their questionable, their nonprofit status continues to be none. Is there an organization that can step up and say, well, this group of people who pretended to ignore the bylaws and did shenanigans, were the replacement for them? Is there an ability of a new organization to say, hey, we're a new organization and apply to recognition?
As I said, I'll put this in the article as well. The reason I think there's a whole bunch about the article about how they attacked Michael Nugent. Michael Nugent is the chairman of Atheist Ireland. And
right.
what do you call it when you make something up, but it's a big word for it? Conjecture.
Slander?
Yes. No, conjecture, all right? Because it's researched, and I have a reason for thinking it's true. Michael Nugent is the chairman of Atheist Ireland, and they kind of came from Full Metal Jacket in the EGM, which again is nothing to do with why the EGM was supposed to be convened. That's another thing. They didn't make an EGM is supposed to be convened for a specific, immediate, urgent purpose, and nobody really knew what was. Somebody asked, "What is this emergency purpose we're here for?" There was no answer to it. But anyway, Atheist Ireland, up until December, the Atheist Alliance International was the only atheist organization with consultative status at the UN. And in January, Atheist Ireland, the organization who has a lot of good people in it, but Michael Nugent is the chairman, got consultative status at the UN. So now they're a national group. They're not an international group. They're just a national group in Ireland. They've already made more submissions to the UN in the last few weeks than AAI has done in the last few months.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that might be rattling them somehow, because they're an atheist organization that are showing exactly what you're supposed to do with this status. You don't just put it on your blog and say, give us money. You go to the UN and you explain your case and you ask your questions. You make your presentations like a goddamn grown-up. Kraus was he was subject to several credible sexual harassment allegations, yes, which I've linked to in my blog as evidence. And also he publicly defended Jeffrey Epstein, which is a separate issue, but it's also something he did. Anyway,
boy.
Yeah, so that's linked as well. I'm not spinning all this out of nothing. I've linked everything in my article. They're all inline links, and you can click on everything to see exactly.
The links are also below.
Journalism or something, right? You have sources.
Right,
what is this?
Yeah,
It's
check all the
really
sources yourself.
It's really bad when people who actually do journalistic work are like, don't call me a journalist. I actually had Dapper.
Yeah.
Dapper did that to me like a month ago.
Did I? What did you call me?
No, you told me that I was like doing something, and I'm like, I can't be responsible for this shit. And you're like,
okay.
I don't think you already are. And I'm like, oh, yes. Down below there should be. Oh, I don't have Barry's links yet. Okay, I'll make sure Barry's links get added into the description down below. Oh no, his link tree is right there. Okay, yeah, Barry's link.
So who knows?
Barry's link tree is down below.
So Barry, our final question is: a year from now,
Yes,
where do you think AI will be in the list of relevance or talking about, or
will the dumpster fire
well,
be out?
that's a very good question, because I started looking into this AI thing when I was a guest on the Free Thought of Profit podcast in March 2021. Right, that's how long this thing has been going on. And in March 2021, John explained things to me, which I felt he was over. I thought he was overdoing it, because he has quite a bombastic way of explaining himself, and
Fair.
I thought he was overthinking it. But then I looked it up myself, and he really wasn't. Everything he said is true, and I thought at that stage no one could possibly take them seriously. And since that time, we've had a number of remarkably dramatic, stupid fails from this organization that just got worse and worse. And their policy, some PR consultant said to them, look, just shut up, right? Don't say anything to anybody. Because I asked them for comments on more than one occasion and I got nothing back. And other people have been asking them questions. Some people have dropped out of the advisory council because they got no response to questions they asked. So somebody's giving them the advice to don't say anything. Now, don't say anything is a good policy. If your organization fucks up, don't say anything, write it out, 2 weeks later, see what happens, right?
And
it's a shit policy
generally,
if you fuck up every week.
And
if
fix
you do a new
problem.
Yeah, if you do a new dramatic, stupid fuck up every single week, staying quiet is not the answer. It makes you look weak. It makes it look like you have no control over yourself. And it's just, I mean, I couldn't, when I saw that EGM, oh man. Anyway, it's in the article.
Yeah, I've seen some of it. Definitely go read Barry's article, as well as John also writes articles as well. So check those
Adlington 43.
Yeah.
John writes on Adlington 43, and he goes into great detail, and he sources everything as well, and you can see the sources that he uses, and you can judge his articles for yourself. Unlike the AI statements, which appear to be completely unsourced. Whenever they say something, they don't source anything. They just say this is what happened, which may be true. I mean, how would we know? They haven't sourced anything.
Right.
But I sourced everything, and John sources everything. Come at me, bro. Right?
Well, AI is a giant dumpster fire, and if you want to know more, definitely go check out the Free Thought Profit. And if you have questions for them,
tomorrow night we have another show, and we'll have new information that is not in the article, and is also not in the verbal text that I have outpoured now.
So, but wait till tomorrow, because there's more.
Yeah.
So, and if you have questions, definitely go and ask them, because these guys will answer.
Yeah.
So, Florida.
Sorry for taking all your Florida time.
No. You guys ate up all my time when it came to dice.
So the governor of Florida has a really exceptional talent for identifying things that make people upset in order to try and claim himself to be the champion of fighting them, right? So he's really good at dividing people and say,
he's got to fight the woke mob.
This group, that group, and this group is bad and you should be upset, implying you should support him because he will oppose the bad people. That's kind of seems to be his shtick. And he does I think he does it better than Donald Trump in terms of being able to do this divide thing. Oh, by the way, we have somebody who contributed.
Yep. Michael King just gave us a mic drop for I believe what Barry was saying for £5.
Excellent.
Thank you very much, Michael.
Thank you very much, Michael. We appreciate that. With five British thingy majiggers.
Weird L with a line through it. Go on, Landon.
No, we appreciate it. Thank you very much. But
the L,
this
the L
is
actually, just real quick, Landon, sorry, the L stands for L Librum, pound, and it's pound, originally was an actual pound of silver in weight. That's what the L comes from. It means a pound of silver. So they call it sterling silver pounds. Carry on.
Yes. And it actually is a substantial currency. I don't want to disrespect it. It actually has value and
it's got some weight to it.
Ooh, ding.
You cannot stop.
Although it's not what it used to be.
Shouting.
All right, go ahead.
Not used to be, but it also was the sterling pound, which is different than history.
History's
so
dumb.
so
The banknotes still have written on it, "I promise to pay the bearer 5 pounds of silver." All the banknotes
that
have
was
that written on banknotes.
Yeah,
No, they still
back
have
when there
written
was
on it.
still a
No, I
metallic.
can't deliver it. Yeah.
Yeah, so back
and
when
it also has. Go ahead, please.
I was just saying, back when there was a metal reserve standard for money, the idea was supposed to be that the money reserve is actually the precious metals, and so
Yes.
the banknotes are just, hey, if you want, this is exchangeable. Then most countries went pretty far away from that. Eventually, the U.S. made it so that only foreign banks could draw like actual metal reserves, and that was sort of the last vestige of any metal standard, as far as I can tell, in the world. And then the U.S. was like, nah, no one can. And then all money since then has just been like, the government says it's worth something, so I guess it is.
Yeah, it's fiat. It's all fiat currency now.
Yeah, which has its advantages.
Yeah, it's great. The whole system runs on credit.
Well, it has its disadvantages too.
There you go.
Look, right now, if we were to switch to a metal reserve currency, it would probably be a disaster for the world economy.
My favorite
would
experience
take
is just
like
getting paid
90%.
in exposure.
Yeah, it would take 90% of the value out of all the economies, except maybe the Islamic economies.
There was somebody I was actually watching. They were talking about. Oh no, where was it? Their home country. They had moved to Sweden, and they were like, "Why are you calling my country poor? Everything in my country is paid for in cash."
Yep.
I wish I could remember
Islamic
what.
economies,
Yep.
interest is haram, so they can't do anything with interest or credit.
Yeah.
It's haram.
It wasn't.
Oh, okay.
It was somebody or
Do you know about
somewhere-
Sharia compliant financing?
Yeah.
Oh my god! All right, hold on. Time out. We're off on an. Okay.
Should we go to Florida?
Dapper, please put a pin in Sharia law financing. We will come back to that on another episode of the Tavern.
No, we won't.
And I do want to
Lie
also,
me.
in finishing, the Dapper thing about history stuff, you should understand or know about the Cross of Gold speech that was made by William Jennings Bryan during the Democratic National Convention, 1896.
By the way, when I say I'm sorry. When I say history is dumb, I say that as someone who got a degree in it. So take that.
And helping him catapult himself to his presidential nomination. It's actually an amazing speech if you read it in terms of its fervor and so forth. And I understand people who wrote about listening to it. He was a very dynamic speaker who knew how to play a crowd, and it's something that if you're into public speaking, you should know about.
I have no idea how the hell I'm gonna edit this episode later. This is so chaotic today for some reason. Amazing.
But back to Florida. I mean, the part of the thing about Florida is a governor who understands how to tap into people's anger and then create an us and them and make him the champion of us.
So he's definitely doing it he's definitely doing it in an area where he's got the home advantage, right? He's not like he's doing this in a state or in a political structure that isn't to his advantage in this scenario.
Yeah. But he understands how to make craft a statement, which requires someone like Barry to issue 4 paragraphs to refute. And in an age when your attention span is little less than a TikTok video, it's very hard to combat.
I might actually join TikTok if Barry made a TikTok where he just takes like snippets of things and just does one of his rants and then breaks it up into 4 TikToks. That'd be great.
Don't tempt me, Frodo.
Do it.
So I was just trying to give it context for Florida, right? So when you see DeSantis is doing it, and I think like Putin, he doesn't actually care about the issue. He cares about making himself appear to be the champion of things that he gets people upset about.
Yep.
So what is exactly Florida trying to do? Now they've in getting? Did critical race theory ever even make it into Florida curriculum?
As far as I know, no. It's not really
Right. It says
much of a thing in like high school.
If critical race theory was to be taught, one of the several theories and in an objective manner.
But you could find somewhere in Florida some teacher saying something that you could try to claim as critical race theory, and then pull out the we got to protect our children from this dastardly thing that's happening.
Think of the children.
One thing that's fun is getting people who want to stop critical race theory to define critical race theory.
There you go. That's what I do, and it slows them way the hell down.
They're spectacularly bad at that.
Like people trying to stop evolution, trying to define what evolution is, and not caring.
Yeah, it is a lot like that. Yeah.
Funny.
It's a lot like young Earth creation. It's just not knowing what evolution is. Weird, isn't it?
It's monkeys,
but it's bad.
Turning it.
It's pine trees and elephants being common ancestry. Is that?
Mm-hmm. I mean, to be fair, the theory of evolution does support the common ancestry between elephants and pine trees. It is true.
But the elephants and rocks, right? You're saying that elephants are just rocks, but animated.
No. That's
well, I mean, rocks do have a god belief, so...
Wait, I thought rocks were atheists.
You're right.
Are rocks theists now?
I think if they're used to make up a church, they probably are.
Oh, okay. So, like, they convert to Christianity and they get turned into a church?
Either that or, like...
Hey, there's a song, Rock of Ages, so that's...
Oh my god! I really thought you were gonna go the route of, like a gospel song that you would sing in church about, like, how the rocks are gonna cry out God's name, and you just went in a totally different...
Those rocks were non-consensually pressed into service to build that church.
Right? So are we saying that religious folks are enslaving and oppressing atheists?
Yes.
You certainly are, Chesh, yes.
Damn.
That's what's happening. That's what you're saying, definitely.
Damn.
Okay,
but think of the children in Florida.
It's built this us-them thing where there's these critical race theory people, which are them, and he's the champion of the non-CRT people because reasons, and then he gets to put out edicts or gubernatorial decrees saying CRT bad, right?
Yeah.
Why? So that when he chooses to run for office, he can get more campaign contributions.
Well, there's some interesting stuff in here too, that it says
perhaps
the state education department's quote had said every lesson we teach is based on history, not ideology or any form of indoctrination. And I don't know how you can have a conversation about history and not talk about at least the ideology of the time. And, like, how else do you get history other than talking about you have to view it through the ideology of the time that you're living.
So it goes back to this idea.
Go ahead. How do you counter DeSantis's? You're espousing critical race theory is going to destroy the mind of our children.
Maybe it's like sociology. Maybe it's like socialism. Americans are generally fine with socialism as long as you explain it and don't use the word socialism.
Yeah, because I think it's communism.
Maybe critical race theory can be like that. Just do critical race theory and just don't use the term critical race theory. Just say, black people didn't have a great time around hereabouts in 1830.
Take the word race out of it.
But DeSantis knows how to bait people when he says, so Florida schools shall not teach critical race theory, counting on people being suckered into responding. Right?
Yes, of course.
And this, by the way, this is how Putin and the Politburo operate, where they knowingly say things that are false to troll you to get you to respond. So it is quite possible within the Politburo speech that someone will quite seriously in the UN say Russia has never invaded Ukraine.
Mm.
And you go, and they just smile back and say, we trolled you, we got you.
Yes, you stupid fact checker.
Yeah, fact checkers. When did that become a thing? Come on. Actually trying to make sure that what people say is true? The nerve.
Fake news.
Idiots.
Fake news. Fake news.
DeSantis pushed to overhaul the education system in other ways, too. He endorsed a slate of school board candidates last year following his success with a blueprint aimed at empowering conservative school board members. Soon after his endorsed candidates were seated, a number began firing educators and administrators who backed coronavirus precautions. The education department was also impaneled a group including conservative activists to create standards that would be followed before school librarians could buy new books.
We were always at war
So
with these things.
just science denial, science denial, censorship, always a great way to start your education system.
Well, I don't understand. There's a really big gap here, though, right? Just a gap in logic where you have we want free speech. We want as many freedoms as possible. We ought to be able to make our own choices. Yada yada yada. Yes, ban books. How does this fall in line with a lot of the ideological talking points of the Republican Party? The Republican Party
the Republican Party doesn't have ideology talking points. They have a superficial understanding of what they're about emotional.
They have
responses.
reaction.
Right,
Yeah.
but what they say is, and how they sucker people in is by
Bullshit.
utilizing this rhetoric that is all about freedom and choice, and you should be able to decide
Yeah.
what you want to do with your life, whether that be your taxes, whether that be your medical care, whether that be your education system. But they're letting the government pick and choose, an entity that is not them, the government, pick and choose what they are and are not allowed to read.
But DeSantis will say, you need to allow me to state that parents should decide what they do, who educates their children, not these critical race theory people.
I mean, that's all.
And so you want to empower me to enforce that parents get to decide or
But that's
choose, right?
But again, we're back to selling the Brooklyn Bridge. They already have that power. Parents can already decide a school district depending on where they
Santos is also
choose
he's
to live.
also doing a lot of signaling. He's signaling to his base, and it doesn't really matter if any of these
It's code word
policies
stuff,
go
right?
through.
Dog
Yeah.
whistle. Dog whistle.
Mm.
Yes. But it's so it's a matter of saying, and DeSantis is saying, trying to say to parents, and effectively continue to support me because I'm the one who will stand up on your behalf against these evil people, right? And he'll say, that he'll do things like, he says things like, this is un-American to teach these things and infect the minds of our children that will destroy America. So elect me to protect America from these evil people. You will see.
Yeah.
I'm presuming he's going to announce his run for president.
And
you'll see him taking this on a national stage.
And I wonder how that's going to do, because he is going kind of he's trying to be like smarter Trump, it seems to be. That he's
Ron DeSantis is a politician, so he's already got the edge on him.
Right. He's got the edge, and he also seems to be trying to pull the Trump Republicans in with the rest of the Republicans via his presentation of this information and what he's trying to do. So that way it will not split the Republican Party in the upcoming election, as Trump has actually started his campaign trail recently.
I think DeSantis, you're right, Chesh, that DeSantis is rather experienced in public relations. He is very, and I don't believe, for example, unlike Trump, who just does not appear to be very intelligent. I think DeSantis has a lot of smarts and skills in how he plays the media and how he uses words, making him more dangerous than the bumbling idiot that appears to be Trump.
He has all the best words.
Well, I mean, he wants to be the next Trump.
Yes.
That's pretty obvious.
And Trump himself, yeah.
I'm waiting to see from like the Murdoch, media empire when they decide that DeSantis is actually should be anointed and not Trump, right?
I think they want to
now you see the beginnings of because Trump had to re-announce his starting of his presidential campaign.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right. He's now starting up, trying to gain a foothold.
And he just got reinstated on a couple of the social media websites.
But I think I suspect that DeSantis and the Murdoch media empire are negotiating on things to decide when, because for DeSantis to declare early would be a mistake.
Yep. Yeah,
he can
I think
continue to on a national scale do things to gain attention, because I think his going after critical race theory and librarians and so forth is playing he's trying to play to a national audience, and certainly I've seen Fox and Friends really playing up his, he's a champion of the people, quote unquote, going after the evil.
Yeah. I suspect that you will see a spike on librarian Pornhub searches after this in Florida specifically.
We can only hope.
I suspect that will absolutely be the case. That tends to be like a really big trend, particularly in like the southern belty area there of particularly Republican states. If something happens politically and there's a big bad enemy, the number of porn searches about that big bad enemy just right up.
But still, DeSantis is very skilled at finding something that you didn't think was an issue, calling it a name to get a certain group of people upset about it, and then doing something which may not even help on the issue, but it identifies him as a champion. So his
that's standard populism, though, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so the way to see how well the Murdoch media empire decides to amplify his voice, as in whether or not they've decided to throw Trump under the bus and to nominate somebody else. The problem is it's very early, and there are other Republicans who might be better suited for Murdoch's purposes.
That could be, yeah, because they're going to be self-interested, right? So they're gonna pick whatever is most beneficial to them, and they might even play the two against each other until they land to get as many ratings as they can, and just show how DeSantis says this and Trump says this, and play both sides up until they make a decision.
Yeah. On the other hand, remember that DeSantis actually won reasonably handily his reelection,
right?
And so the Florida voters that voted, brought him, continued to amplify his presence there. Florida does have very interesting mathematics they apply in counting votes, but it's pretty clear from stuff that DeSantis won, quite handily, right? And enjoys popular support, and he's looking at how to push that nationally in order to try and find it. And part of it, he's probably hoping that he and Trump will fall on different sides of an issue, so he can then further marginalize Trump.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's probably going to try and bait Trump into something. I wouldn't be surprised to see that. But we should start wrapping up. We did go a little bit long. I pushed us a little bit long specifically because we spent too much time looking at Landon's dice, which are freaking awesome, by the way. So if that person that you're buying dice off of happens to have like a Etsy or like a sell link, let me know so I can put that in the description as well. Right?
Yeah. I'll ask.
Does anybody have any last words about anything that we did cover or anything that they want to cover in a future episode?
Everything is just stuff that.
I mean, I think from things that have been going on. The question is so therefore what? We've been to do a number of dumpster fires.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what should you do as a result of seeing these dumpster fires and other things that we could mention like
You
Scottish
should
independence
like and
what the Tories did.
subscribe and join the channel.
Yes.
I mean, because we didn't talk about the latest Tory thing they did to Scotland.
Correct.
We didn't talk about Brexit and the Heisenberg border between the Republic of Ireland and the occupied part of Northern Ireland. We didn't talk about some of the stuff going on inside. There are other dumpster fires we could have covered. But the question is, someone listening to this might feel depressed, might feel bad.
Here's what I say.
What?
I say to people who are angry about things, I say, really the best response if you're angry about something and something is not just like in your life, I mean in a general sense, angry about something, is to find people who agree with you and organize on the ground.
Grassroots. Yeah.
Yes.
You can change laws like that because it's happened. I've been involved in efforts to do that, successful efforts to do that on a number of occasions in Ireland. Find people who agree with you, organize on the ground, turn up to the meetings, don't be afraid of pushing yourself forward. If you're angry, take that anger and do something with it.
Focus it. I mean, you could argue that one of the stories we covered today did that, the Dungeons and Dragons stuff.
Sit at home, type it into Twitter, you know?
Yep.
Find people in the real world and organize.
Yeah.
Recognize that you feel bad or you feel like something is wrong. Congratulate yourself for caring enough to feel,
anger is a very reasonable response to a lot of this stuff.
I think there's 3 things that people ought to do. If you feel like and you recognize that you're angry, figure out why and why you care. Once you figure out why you care and why it matters to you, start taking action if you feel that's necessary. Those actions you want to have in a positive direction because you want to help the issue, not make the issue worse. So your next step would probably be go and find as much information as possible because the way you win these kinds of situations is you want knowledge. Any kind of negotiation, any kind of fight that you're getting yourself into, the more knowledge you have, the more likely you are to win. So get as much information on the situation that's upsetting you as possible, but be sure to make sure you take care of your mental health while you do it. You don't want to exhaust yourself, right? Because you can't help anybody if you're not in a good place. So make sure you're in a good place as you do this, and in doing so, while you're doing your research, do exactly what Barry said, and find people that are also doing research and people who are also maybe already part of movements that may or may not exist around whatever is bothering you.
Talk to people. Recognize that you want to you recognize the emotion that's in there, but not respond on emotion, but instead turn that energy into, let me understand more the details of stuff. Let me talk to other people, one-on-one about the sort of thing, and then choose to operate on facts, not on emotion, right? Remember that people like DeSantis will try and play on your ability to have emotions and then draw you in so that you might support someone who otherwise you wouldn't support.
And prey on your
ignorance.
Yeah.
So take that emotion as a one value that I care, good for me. Now let me take that energy and understand the background behind it. Do some research. Do what effectively is kind of like journalism. Look for information. Talk to other people. That's a good place to get information. And then decide on the basis of facts how to respond rather than on emotion.
Yeah, because keep in mind, if we're going to use DeSantis as an example, one of the things he presented was education reform. I agree with education reform, especially in America. Lots of education reform would be good, but the devil's in the details.
And understand, that in talking with Russians, they understand Putin's attractiveness because Putin tells them what they want to hear. Oftentimes, Putin is not playing to the international crowd, but he's playing to the domestic crowd to try and elicit emotion from there. So take that emotion, recognize that's a good thing for you to be concerned about something, and turn it into facts, and then respond with reason.
All right, let's wrap up here. Do we want to get who everybody is and what they're up to? Dapper, Landon, then I'll let our special guest Barry go last and take us on out.
All right.
Dapper, who are you? What does he say you do here?
So I'm Dapper Dinosaur. I have a channel that does a lot of pseudoscience debunking. The biggest topic is young Earth creationism, but I do other stuff. In fact, I'm currently working on a series about Mud Fossil U, because Roger still is stabbing his monitor with a feather, talking absolute nonsense. So I do usually 3 videos a week. Saturdays are almost always, but I can't always guarantee a Saturday show. But Tuesdays and Thursdays. Tuesdays are my drinking shows. So if you want to come and have some drinks while we debunk some absolute nonsense, and we always go for some pretty low hanging fruit on that one, just because, well, it's drinking. Thursdays are the scripted shows. Saturdays are sort of like the variety hour. Coming up middle of next month, the Cambrian Bunny Awards ceremony will be on Saturday. It should be on the 11th. I'm not positive about that, though. I need to get back with the other panelists. And yeah, it's a good time.
They can still vote, by
like
the way.
Patreon. Oh yeah, you can still vote. Voting is still up if you want to vote. In the Cambrian Bunny Awards, go to the nomination ceremony. You might want to watch it so you know who you're voting for and why you're voting for them. But then there are links to unlisted videos. The way you vote is you pick an unlisted video for a particular category and you hit like. Whichever video in the category gets the most likes, that's who wins the category. So it's a private nomination, but it's a public voting.
And if you have more than one account, you can like more than once.
Cheating is encouraged.
If you want to make a bot that just keeps making new YouTube accounts and then just always does nothing but vote for one particular person, you can do it. I don't care. This is an award that means literally nothing to anyone. It's just a fun thing to do.
All right, Landon, who are you and what is it you say you do here?
I am an astronomer and a planetary scientist, and I study this planet as well. And you sometimes see me on the debate hub talking about what Madame Pele is doing. Sometimes, I was just at a wonderful presentation and teaching high school students about general and special relativity, including proving E equals mc squared and all that good stuff. So I do science education. I also am a patron and promoter of both Dapper Diner, which I encourage you to consider, as well as Chesh, and encouraging people going forward. I also have a Discord channel called Our Favorite Universe. And there's a link that, I don't know if it's been posted in the chat.
I would love to post it in the chat. Give it to me every single time. Because your link expires. I'm going to teach you how to make a link that doesn't expire.
It's in the, I put it into our chat.
Okay. I'll go get it. No, I'll go get it. Go ahead.
And anyway, so in that particular channel, I have a thing about science news, lots of really good stuff about various science topics. I have medical news, fans of history, disaster news feed, so forth. You can obtain. So if you join, you can join in the next 7 days. Then I'll elevate you to a science fan, and then you can have access to all kinds of cool stuff. So I encourage you to join Our Favorite Universe, as well as to support content creators you like. That's very important.
Barry, who are you, and what do you say you do here?
Before we do this, I'm going to ask Landon, is it true that you invented at least 3 prime numbers?
I have held world records on the largest known prime.
Oh, yes! That's a yes!
Times.
Brilliant! You invented prime numbers. That is so fantastic.
So I've had had a couple of Mersenne, a non-Mersenne, largest twins, and so forth, largest perfect numbers for all. I'm proud that all those records have been broken, because every time we obtained a record, we would publish the source code, publish the methodology, and say, here, take this stuff and expand upon it, do more. And in fact, it's hard to say, but I'm actually more excited about the people breaking my records, because they took what it did and did it even better. So yay,
because you care. Well done. My name is Barry. I'm a writer. You will find my stuff on Only Sky and a bunch of other places. But if you Google my name, unfortunately, that's not going to do you much good, because you get a legion of rapists and murderers and traitors who are not me, but who have my name. But if you Google Solo 1Y, you'll probably get me on most services.
There is a link tree down below.
Or my link tree, yeah, that'll do it. Here I am.
Yeah. And he's going to be live tomorrow on a show that he should be promoting.
Tomorrow night, discussing the breaking news of AI. Break your minds.
answer, by the way, to Michael King, I asked, I was actually the resident astronomer at Cisco Systems. I did things like helping Deep Space Network because we had this Wi-Fi to the stars, right? All those probes out there that had this fancy links and so forth. So that was one of my things I got to do.
Dude, I have trouble picking up my Wi-Fi inside the house. So
yeah, I was gonna say.
Well, it's trying to getting something flying past Pluto and getting the multiple paths are is a different story
the
than
other side
Wi-Fi.
of my house.
But if I were there, I could do some signal analysis and help you figure out how to get.
Today I learned that space has better internet connection than Canada. All right.
Dude, imagine if Landon came to your house and
Landon's
you got him
Landon
to jump
would
off
totally.
your
Landon would totally come to my house. What are you talking about?
Yes, I do plan on experiencing Canada Rail across Canada.
Landon's gonna come visit me.
Stopping at a spot of Chesh because I think at some point we'll show up live where all of a sudden there's a goblin and there's Landon and they're in the same.
I am 100%. I already know what bar I'm taking him to, like what restaurant. Okay. Anyway.
Yeah.
So
and in fact, Chesh's mom.
Yeah.
Sounds like a really cool person to meet, and that would be a wonderful experience.
Oh yeah. All right. So I've been Chesh. I'm your host. If you learned something, subscribe and share. We will see you next time. Thank you for joining us. If you were able to join us, if you were super chatted, and if you're a member, thank you so much for supporting the channel. I will be back live on Tuesday doing something. I think I'm talking about another crazy politician person. That's a no. I'm talking about that Nick alpha male dude. It's gonna be no, that's next Friday. I don't know what I'm talking about on Tuesday. I'll see you guys on Tuesday. Also, if you are a member or a Patreon, there is currently an unlisted video available for you about nuclear fusion. And we are going to get out of here. Have a good weekend, everybody. And maybe see Barry tomorrow. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.